teachers, at everyone watching us live via DepEd Philippines Facebook page. Binabati ko rin po ang lahat ng ating mga kaibigan sa media na makakasama natin sa araw na ito para sa ating press conference. Siyempre, ngayong umaga rin po ay naka-broadcast at mapapanood tayo live sa ating mga partners sa kanilang mga social media accounts at local channels. Sa buong bansa po yan, andyan po ang CLTV 36 Region 3, DWRP 103.9 News FM Radio Bulacan, Romblon Cable ng Mimaropa Region, andyan din po ang Kabangkalan Community Antenna TV sa Kabangkalan City Region 6, Siargao TV sa Caraga Region, The Post at Rappler. Ngayon pong umaga ay aalamin natin ang mga latest updates tungkol sa ating pilot implementation of face-to-face classes. Makakasama natin ang ilan sa ating mga DepEd officials. Siyempre, pinangungunahan na po yan ni Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones, kasama sina Yusek Annalyn Sevilla, Yusek Revsi Escobedo, ASEC Malcolm Garma at Director Roger Masapol. From our field offices naman po, andito rin ang mga kinatawan ng DepEd Region 3 at Region 12. SDS Romeo Alip ng SDO Zambales, and andito din po si Dr. Carlito Rocafort ng Region 12, ating Regional Director. Sa Lunes nga po, that is November 15, ay inaasahan ng magbubukas ang ilang paaralan sa bansa para simulan ang ating pilot limited face-to-face classes. Mula po nang mapirmahan ang ating Joint Memorandum Circular between DepEd and DOH na ito pong nagsisilbing gabay sa atin para magpatupad ng ating pilot face-to-face classes, patuloy pa rin po ang ating pagpaplano at konsultasyon ukol rito. Katunayan nga po, ilang araw nang naglilibot ang ating DepEd officials upang mag-inspeksyon sa mga paaralan upang masigurado po na may kaligtasan at safe talaga ang ating mga paaralan para sa ating kabataan na papasok ngayong November 15. Isa nga po sa binisita ng DepEd noong nakarang linggo ay ang Tamulaya Elementary School sa Pulilo Island at ngayong linggo ay patuloy pa rin ang inspeksyon sa iba't ibang lugar, sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa. Kaya nga po, alamin natin ang latest sa school preparation and inspection mula kay Director Roger Masapol ng ating planning service. Director Roger, good morning po.
Yeah, magandang araw, Director Nina, and then magandang umaga sa ating buting secretary, kay ASIC Malcolm, kay Yusek Ann, at sa lahat ng ating mga kaibigan sa media. So, magbibigay lang ko ng quick update sa preparation. Director Nina, may I confirm if nakikita na yung aking slide?
Yes, we can see your screen. Hindi lang po siya naka-slideshow, Director Roger. Ayan.
Yeah, so let me give a quick updates on the preparations na ginagawa po ng kagawaran para sa pagbubukas ng ating mga paaralan sa November 15. So, ito po ang lagi namin binabalikan because ito po yung framework natin kung saan tayo humuhugot ng ating partnership sa ating mga kaibigan at mga kapartner na para maging maayos at masiguro na ligtas ang pagbabalik ng paaralan ng ating mga kabataan. So shared responsibility po ang ating framework kung saan ito rin po ang isinusulong ng ating kalihim kung saan dapat malinaw sa mga involved dito sa ating pagbubukas ng ating mga classroom para sa mga kabataan. Yung role nila like yung DepEd and DOH, ito pong dalawang agency na to ang nagbuo at nagpanday ng joint circular para lang maikasa ang mga protocols at mga alituntunin sa pagbubukas ng mga classroom. And then yung LGU naman and the entire community. And then yung ating other concerned government agencies and especially yung families, yung school home coordination. Tinitingnan natin yung apat na elemento, yung safe operation ng mga paaralan, yung paano i-deliver yung ating teaching and learning, at saka yung pag-include ng ating mga kabataan na nasa marginalized sector at yung mga nahirapan during the last year implementation ng BLCP.
Recording in
And then,
progress.
isa sa pinaka binabantayan natin at sinisiguro yung well-being and protection, because itong pagbubukas natin, hindi lang po ito health and safety, but mayroon po itong education aspect, learning aspect na kailangan din nating tingnan na habang pinoproteksyon natin ang mga kabataan at ay sinisiguro natin na natututo sila ng mas maigi pag sila'y pumasok sa mga paaralan. So just a quick updates, very quick lang ito sa field preparation. Ang ating pong kalihim 3 weeks ago pa or 1 month ago nag-order na siya na i-subject na for assessment yung 638 and the entire school, entire 48,000 public school at yung mga private school ay pinatingnan na rin ng ating kalihim ang kanilang readiness sa eventual rollout of this face-to-face. No? So, specifically, yung nung tiningnan namin yung ating nakasali sa lista ng DOH, may mga konting LGU na nag-recall ng kanilang concurrence dahil sa nagbabago madalas yung COVID risk level sa kanilang lugar. Kaya naunawaan po namin ito. And then yung isa pa ay may mga schools na hindi pumasa doon sa assessment natin. Kasi yung school safety assessment natin, yung gine-develop natin together with DOH, ay very stringent po yung ating mga patakaran dito. And then, yung ating pong mga official sa DepEd divisions ay ginagawa na po itong prior informed consent na required po ito sa IPRA na kung ang activity ay magaganap sa mga schools within the IP communities, kailangan merong prior informed consent. Ito po ay ginagawa na at marami ng school ang nakapag-secure ng FPIC. And then many schools have already conducted parents orientation and secured parents consent, and many schools have complied with the standards of ESSAT while others are working on to address the gaps. And then sa central office po, nakapag-issue po just to prepare the system, no, yung ating kalihim ay nag-issue na kaagad. Simula nang mapirma yung joint circular, nag-issue na po ang ating kalihim ng instruction, yung detailed instruction sa pag-prepare ng mga schools na mapipili. DepEd Memo 71. And then nag-issue din po ang ating kalihim ng accountability map. Dito, inilista ng ating kalihim yung ano yung mga role ng ating mga opisina dito sa Central at ano ang kanilang mga may ambag para maging maayos ang pagbubukas ng ating mga classroom. And then, we mobilize through the APS yung to Educ Forum yung additional resources na pledges ng ating mga partners. And then we also partnered with the NTF para ma-accelerate yung ating vaccination at nakapag-submit na rin po ang kagawaran ng line list ng mga unvaccinated teachers. And then yung ating pong finance group ay nakapag-download na po ng mga additional or supplemental budget sa ating mga public school na napili. And then, na-prepare na po ng DepEd ang ating M&E plan para matingnan natin ano ba ang titingnan natin dito habang nag-i-implement at pagkatapos mag-implement yung indicator of success at nakapag-ready na rin po ng school reporting template. And then, nag-prepare na rin po ang DepEd ng mga activity calendar para maikasa po ng DepEd yung mga activity na gagawin ng iba't ibang opisina sa DepEd para sa mga pilot schools. Karamihan dito ay mga orientation at mga training. And then ongoing po yung training sa mga pilot schools. And then nag-conduct na po ng visit. Ang sa kasalukuyan po, nasa field po ang ating mga members ng management committee, yung ating ASIC and USEC. Within the week po ay mag-iikot po sila just to validate yung readiness at saka ma-raise yung awareness at saka yung trust ng community sa ating ginagawa. And then kahapon po, nakipag-meeting po ang kagawaran sa DTI very recently kahapon doon sa mekanismo kung paano po i-confer yung safety seal. Kasi po yung sa kasalukuyan po mayroon ding joint circular ang apat na kagawaran ng DTI, DILG, DOLE saka ang DILG, DOLE, DTI at isa pang agency na nagko-confer ng mga safety seal sa mga establishment like sa mga malls, sa mga barbershop at iba pang sa mga palengke ay nagko-confer po ito ng mga safety seal. At dito po sa joint memo nila, hindi pa kasama ang education agency or yung education establishment. But during the meeting yesterday, i-include na po ang education agencies, yung DepEd, TESDA, and DOH, CHED, doon sa joint memorandum circular, doon sa pag-confer ng safety seal. So sa atin po, ang tinitingnan po kasi dito ng DTI, yung safety and health and safety protocols kung nakakapag-comply ba yung ating mga establishment. Sa DepEd po, 4 na category yung tinitingnan natin at isa lang aspeto doon yung health and safety. Kaya mas stringent yung ating assessment tool na ginawa para masiguro na safe yung ating pagbubukas. So bali ang mangyari po nito kapag na-include ang DepEd sa listahan ng mga agency na pwede mag-confer ng safety seal, ang DepEd po ang mag-confer na ng safety seal doon sa mga schools natin na napili, especially itong mga 100 schools, pero hindi lang po ito limited sa pilot school. Once na mag-qualify na ang mga DepEd schools doon sa ating standards, ay pwede na po siyang mabigyan ng safety seal habang naghihintay po ng kanilang slot sa expansion at doon sa eventual transition to new normal. So this is a good news po kasi gusto ng gobyerno po na maging iisa lang po yung ating branding ng safety seal sa iba't ibang establishment, including po yung mga educational establishment. Now, ito po yung quick feedback kasi ang inyo pong lingkod kasama po ang ating Undersecretary Malaluan na pumunta po kami sa Polillo, sa Tamulaya. Isa po ito sa mga napili or na nag-qualify na public school sa Quezon Province under Region 4A. So nakita po namin paglapag pa lang sa sa daungan ng Polillo is ramdam mo na ang strong support ng LGU doon sa school natin. Nakapag-comply po ang Tamulaya Elementary School sa lahat ng standards na set doon sa JMC. At pwede na po siyang mag-start sa November 15. At pagdating po namin doon sa school na yon, kita mo na mayroon talagang order. Kasi siyempre nagdagsaan doon yung mga sasakyan, mga tricycle, at makikita mo na maayos yung pag-manage ng LGU ng traffic doon. And then, yung school po ay tapos na mag-orient sa mga teachers, sa mga parent at sa kanyang mga counterpart na LGU and community members. Yung parents are fully engaged in the process, not only in meeting the ESAT, but also in ensuring that learners are ready to go back to school. So yung part ng orientation po sa parents ay yung pag-establish ng homeschool coordination. Dapat po very strong yon. Other support services have been put in place to facilitate the referral and movement of learners in the community. So at makikita po natin dito yung role ng LGU. And then given that the school has less than 100 enrollment, ito po ay paulit-ulit po itong sinabi sa amin nung nandun kami na nakikiusap po sila na isali na yung ibang grade level. Kasi ang inaalaw lang po ng ating Pangulo, yung kinder to grade 3. Dahil sinasabi doon ng LGU sa kanang school authorities na maliit lang yung school namin at 100 enrollment lang at nagre-request sila na baka pwede nang payagan na i-include na yung grade 4 to grade 6. Pero po ang sagot namin diyan siyempre magpapaalam tayo sa ating Pangulo dahil ang in-approve ng Pangulo ay ang kinder to grade 3 lang muna. So, yun po ang gagawin ng DepEd to write our president na i-mention baka pwedeng dagdagan yung number of pilot school or i-expand sa higher grade level sa elementary. Now, yun po sa Pulilio po yon. Yung biyahe po namin from Real Quezon to Pulilio is 3 hours on a Roro. Now, isa pa po sa pinuntahan ng grupo ay yung Binagbag Elementary School sa Agdangan, Quezon. Itong school po nito ay hindi siya kasali sa face-to-face ngayong November 15, pero kasali siya doon sa 638. Ngayon, pinuntahan namin siya para makita yung difference ng preparation ng pilot school saka yung mga nag-aantay dito sa expansion. So, halos parehas po yung naramdaman namin doon sa community support saka yung LGU support. Napaka-strong po ng LGU support saka ng community. And then, very specifically yung LGU Augmented Schools Resources. Nagbigay po siya ng financial resources sa ating paaralan. At ang parents po ay nag-provide na ng consent. Kahit sila po ay alam nila, February pa sila pero nagbigay na sila ng consent. And then the school was not included kasi noong ay na-identify ng DOH yung pilot school. Itong school na to nagkaroon ng isang kaso during that time. Kaya siya ay na-delist doon sa pilot school. Overall, yung Binagbag has already met the most of the requirements and the JMC to be ready to welcome back learners for face-to-face. Kung ako po tatawagin dahil pumunta rin ako dito, ready na po itong Binagbag para sa November 15. Pero they are aware na sa expansion phase pa sila. Pero yung extent of preparation po, halos walang pinagkaiba doon sa pilot school. And then I'm sure, karamihan sa mga school natin ay ganito na rin yung status dahil doon sa direktiba ng ating kalihim na wag nang antayin yung pilot phase. Kailangan ngayon pa lang tingnan na yung readiness ng ating mga paaralan. So bale, yun lang, Director Nina, ang aking updates on the preparation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Roger. Maraming pong salamat sa iyong updates. At talagang nakapagbigay po ng konkretong example si Director Roger sa mga nadalaw niyang schools, no? And we'd also like to extend our thank you sa ating LGUs and sa parents na patuloy na sumusuporta sa ating pagbabalik eskwela. Maraming salamat, Director Roger. At upang ngayon naman, bigyan tayo ng updates tungkol sa status ng mga iba pang eskwelahang napili para sa pilot implementation ng face-to-face classes, may I now call on Assistant Secretary Malcolm Garma to provide his updates. ASEC Malcolm.
Okay, thank you, Director Nina. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat, sa ating po mga media partners, sa mga sumusubaybay dito sa ating lingguhang presscon dito sa EduAKSYON. Hayaan po ninyong magbigay po kami ng ilang updates tungkol po doon sa ating ginagawa at gagawing pilot implementation itong face-to-face na magsisimula po ngayong ika-15 ng Nobyembre. Director Nina, nabigay na ni Director Roger basically the overview of the preparation not only by the central office but also the preparations that are being done at the level of our regions and in particular mismo sa schools na. So, kung mapapansin po natin sa mga nakalipas na linggo, ay nagbibigay po tayo ng update, basically yung mga pangkalahatang impormasyon lamang. But this time, I think we are now at the stage na talagang dapat ang pinapakita na natin yung actual na mangyayari at nagaganap sa level na ng mga schools that will participate for our pilot implementation. So may I ask our Secretariat to put on screen our presentation, please. Is it on screen now, Director Nina?
Yes, ASEC, we can see the presentation.
Okay. Sige. Can we go to the next slide, please? Sige. So ito pong ating ibabahaging presentasyon on the updates. Ay una, gusto nating pakita yung bagong tala ng ating pong mga 100 pampublikong paaralan. So kaya po bagong tala kasi sa mga nakalipas na araw, meron pong mga nabago doon sa ating listahan na naibigay na ho natin sa media noong mga nakaraang linggo. At mamaya sa ipapakita ko po, ibabahagi ko sa inyo yung detalye nitong mga ilang eskwelahan na napalitan ng mga bagong paaralan, pero maliwanag na we have maintained the 100 public schools as stipulated in the Joint Memorandum Circular. At magbibigay din po kami ng ilang impormasyon. Alam ko marami ang gustong magtanong tungkol sa estado naman ng mga pampribadong paaralan na lalahok dito sa ating pilot implementation. At susundan ko na po yung mga naunan ng update ni Director Roger on the preparations that are being undertaken at the levels of the schools. Kagabi ho ay nagkaroon kami ng pagpupulong ng mga regional directors at isa-isa po silang nagbahagi na ng kanilang mga kasalukuyang ginagawa bilang preparasyon o paghahanda dito sa ating pilot face-to-face. At bahagi ko rin, Director Nina, ilan po sa mga informasyon o detalye nung magaganap o nagaganap at naganap na na pagbisita ng ating mga MANCOM and EXICOM officials. Gusto nating linawin na itong pagbisita na ito ay hindi lang basta pagbisita, kundi ito po ay bahagi ng ating proseso. Kumbaga lumalabas na ito yung huling layer ng ating validation para masiguro na ang ating mga paaralan ay nakatugma at nakaayon doon sa ating inilatag na mga guidelines. Next slide please. Okay, so to summarize the presentation, just to give you an overview. So again, we would like to emphasize that we have already completed the 100 public schools stipulated in the Joint Memorandum Circular. However, of that 100 pilot schools or list of schools that we have presented last week to our media partners, 4 were replaced. 4 po doon sa mga paaralan na yon ang napalitan. And later on, I will share with you the detail of that replacements. So based on the reports of the regional directors, so almost all participating schools are ready for the pilot implementation in November 15. On the average, most of them are basically on a 90% above preparation. So kung meron mang mga tinatapos pa o tinutugunan pa, ito na lang siguro yung mga maliliit na detalye tulad ng yung paglalagay ng mga barriers na plastic at paglalagay ng mga signages and everything. But this can all be done within the week in preparation for the November 15th start of the pilot implementation. And I will share the numbers and the specific names of schools for the perusal of our media partners and for the information of our general public. So for Region 1, we still have 10, Region 3, 10 schools, Region 4A, 5 schools, Region 5, 9, Region 6, 3 schools, Region 7, 8 schools, Region 8, 10 schools. Next slide, please. So for Region 9, we still have 8. Region 10, we have 10 schools. Region 11, we have 8 schools. Region 12, we have 5 schools. And Region 13, or Caraga, we have 14 for a total of 100 public schools. Okay. Next slide, please. So ito na po yung listahan ng mga schools. Next slide. So for Region 1, we have the following schools: Longos Elementary School, Alao Elementary School, Padagan Elementary School, San Isidro Elementary School, Bikbika Primary School, Buanga Elementary School, Godogod Elementary School, Dumalneg Elementary School, Dumalneg National High School, Cacafeyan Elementary School. All of these are located in Ilocos Norte. Next slide. Okay, can we go back to the previous slide? Okay, so Longos Elementary School, by the way, is in Pangasinan, in particular in Alaminos City. Okay, can you go to the next slide now? So for Region 3, all of these are located in Zambales, and later on we will be having the updates of the SDS of Zambales, no, para makita natin yung detalye, no, ng kanilang preparation. And I think all of these schools are located in our IP communities, no, in Zambales. So Burgos Elementary School, Uwaog Neblok Elementary School, Moraza Elementary School, Belbel Elementary School, Matisgis Integrated School, Nacolcol Integrated School, Palis Integrated School. So all of these are in Botolan. Next slide, please. And still in Zambales, but two are located in San Marcelino, Baliwet Elementary Schools and San Marcelino National High School, and one is located in San Felipe, Banawen Elementary School. So for 4A, which is in Quezon, no, Lagmak Elementary School, Lumutan Elementary School, Dinigman Elementary School, Pablo Maningas National High School, and the one mentioned by Director Roger that was visited by Yusek Nepo and Director Roger, the Tamulaya Elementary School in Polillo. Next slide. For Region 5, we have Sinalongan Elementary School, Gutusan Elementary School, Mary B. Perpetua National High School, all in Masbate. Okay, and then Buena Vista Elementary School in Sorsogon City. Next slide. Balanak Elementary School, Tandarura Elementary School, Tupas Elementary School, Malama Elementary School, and Yongson Elementary School. All of these are located in Ligao City, Albay. So for Region 6, we have Mayabay Elementary School, Igsoro Integrated School in Antique, and La Serna Integrated School in Aklan. Next slide. So for Region 7, we have Basak Elementary School, Mahanlud Elementary School, Kabagdalan Elementary School, Luyong Baybay Elementary School, Kanyang Marcelo Luna National High School, Busay National High School, Pilar National High School, and Siocon Elementary School, all in the province of Cebu. Next slide. For Region 8, we have the following: Palo Central School, Bato Central School, Dolho Elementary School, Dawo Integrated School, Makatingog Integrated School, Mawakat Elementary School, Pilar National Agricultural High School, Motyong Central Elementary School. Next slide. San Sebastian Central Elementary School, and Clarencio Calagos Memorial School of Fisheries. For Region 9, we have the following: Silo Elementary School, San Vicente Elementary School, Manga National High School, Manga Elementary School, Lala Elementary School. Next slide. Sominot National High School, Kumalarang National High School, Gipos National High School. And then for Region 10, we have Bagalangit Elementary School, Ocasyon Elementary School, Camp 14 Elementary School. Next slide. Napo Elementary School, Masibay Integrated, Tambacon Integrated, Marcela Mabanta National High School, Dalama Central Elementary School, and Babalaya Elementary School, all in Lanao del Norte. And one from Misamis Oriental, San Francisco de Asis Elementary School. Next slide. For Region 11, we have the following: Clip Primary School, Rodilla Elementary School, Takub Elementary School, Bares Elementary School, Parasan Integrated School, Lower Panansalan Elementary School, Maugat Elementary School, and Digaynon Integrated School. Next slide. For Region 12, Paco National High School, Bato Elementary School, Belmida Elementary School, Ned National High School, Aspang Elementary School, and the details of which will be presented to us by RD Charlie Rocaport later on. Next slide. And then for Caraga, we have the following: Sapao National High School, Kawila National High School, Lacandula National High School, Nasikam Peral National High School, Balite National High School, Anajawan Elementary School, Dao Primary School. Next slide. Alegria Senior High School, Kapalayan National High School, Bay Elementary School, Nonok National High School, San Jose Elementary School, Mabuhay Elementary School, Cabawa Elementary School. Next slide. Okay. So now we are going to share with you the details of the replacement. Okay, next slide. So for Region 5, there are 2 schools that was replaced. Tirikan Elementary School in Iriga City and Kabuoyan Elementary School in Catanduanes. Tirikan is replaced by Chongson Elementary School for reason that the LGU has requested for the deferment of their participation in the pilot implementation, but signified that they are willing to participate in the expansion program. In the case of Kabuoyan Elementary School, after we have revalidated the list of schools submitted to us by DOH, we found out that Kabuoyan Elementary School is not included in the list of the eligible schools. So immediately we requested for the replacement. So it only shows that we are very particular on the compliance with our joint memorandum circular. So Kabuoyan now is replaced by Tandarura Elementary School in Ligao City. Next slide. Okay, for Region 9, Tabina Central Elementary School is replaced by Kumalarang National High School for reason that same with Iriga City, the LGU of Tabina has requested for the deferment of their participation, but signified that they are willing to participate in the expansion program. Okay, for Region 11, the Sosimo S. Magdadaro National High School is now replaced by Bares Elementary School. For this reason, that Zosimo Magdadaro National High School is a junior high school and at the moment has no senior high school offering program offering. So that's the reason. Okay. Next slide. So based on the update given to us by Director Joy Sandaya, okay, next slide. So as of the moment, paki-jump ka sa next slide para makita yung total, please. So as of the moment, we have 30 nominated schools coming from the regions. Okay, can you go back to the previous slide? So for Region 1, there were 2 nominations. For Region 2, accordingly, walang pumasa doon sa assessment nila. Of course, considering also the alert level status of Region 2. For Region 3, there are 3 nominees. 4A did not recommend a nomination for private school. 4B, I think same reason that 4B still, well, at the moment, at the time that the deadline for the submission of nomination was set, alert level in 4B still did not qualify them to participate in the pilot school. For Region 5, there are 3 nominees, 6, 3, 7, 3. Next slide. Region 8, 3. Region 9, we have 3. Region 10, 3. Region 11, 1. Region 12, 3. And Caraga, 3. And also for the same reasons that NCR and Cordillera have not yet submitted their nomination precisely because of the alert level status in their area. So as of now, according to the Office of Director Joy Sandaya, we have 30 nominees. And as committed, DepEd will be releasing the decision on which schools will participate, or which 20 schools will participate in the pilot implementation that will start on November 22. Next slide, please. Okay, So as I have said, last night we had the meeting with all the regional directors and asked for their updates on the level of the preparations being done now at the levels of the schools. Okay, next slide. So just to give you some highlights of their updates. So for Region 1, the participating schools are ready for the pilot implementation. 2 schools are ready for assessment and have been nominated. Assessment of all schools, so not only the pilot schools, but basically all the schools in the region already started their preparation for the expansion program. For Region 3, the participating schools are fully prepared for the pilot implementation, and the LGUs and communities have manifested their support to the implementation. All classes are on-site or face-to-face in the morning and modular in the afternoon. So this is basically the design that even if we go back to the classroom, we will not let go of our blended learning or the home-based learning, and the learners who will not participate in the face-to-face classes will continue with their either module or online learning delivery. For Region 4A, well, as mentioned by Director Roger during their visit, all the schools that will participate in the pilot implementation are ready by now. And just to share with you also, this is not only for Region 4A, but for all the regions that will participate in the pilot implementation, the SARO for the augmentation for the fund for the pilot have been already downloaded to the regions and to the divisions. Next slide, please. Director Nina, parang may bukas yatang mic. Okay, thank you. So for Region 5, 3 pilots were already visited and evaluated by the regional office. 4 schools are already on their 90% level in terms of preparation, and they have actually garnered the support of the LGUs and the parents. Let me also emphasize that yung ating pong mga regional directors ang mismong umiikot doon po sa ating mga schools. As mentioned by Director Roger, this is our way to increase the level of confidence of our communities. That we are very particular so far as safety of the learners or the children are concerned. So for Region 6, as reported, also the participating schools are ready for the pilot implementation. Part of its efforts are the information dissemination, conduct of press releases, vaccination campaigns, infographics, etc. By the way, ito maganda ito. Probably some of you will be interested to know paano yung mga malalayong schools natin, yung mga located doon sa mountain areas or coastal areas, paano natin sila ma-reach, no? So the regions have actually developed their monitoring systems so that all throughout the pilot program ay mamamonitor nila using our M&E tools that was discussed by Director Roger kanina. And the use of two-way radios, at least for Region 6, is one of those mechanisms that they will use in terms of their monitoring system. Safety protocols are being developed in consonance with our school safety assessment tools. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. For Region 8, okay, all participating schools in the region conduct convergence with stakeholders Again, as same with other regions, there were overwhelming supports, no, from the LGUs and communities. The regional director of Region 8 herself visited the schools and actually witnessed, no, the readiness of the physical setup in the participating schools. No? That includes the hand washing facilities, no, and the hygiene sanitation kits, and the signages, no, that will be vital for their compliance with our guidelines. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So of the 8 schools in Region 9, 7 of these have already been assessed or validated by the regional office. Since Kumalarang National High School is a replacement school, so they committed that they will still visit Kumalarang National High School. There is one concern in the Region 9 that baka daw merong isang klase na hindi mabuo, no, yung 12 or 20 natin because of some parents. Again, we emphasize that the participation of our learners in the pilot implementation is on a voluntary basis. We are very particular on the concurrence, consent of parents in allowing their children to participate. So even if we are not able to complete, no, the class size as required by our guidelines, so hindi po magiging problema yon. Okay, in Region 10, all participating schools are ready as reported, and all of their preparations are in accordance with the school safety assessment tools. In fact, in Region 10, they will be conducting a dry run, no, on November 11, just to see the readiness or the level of readiness of the participating schools. Next slide, please. For Region 11, since many of the schools in Region 11 are IP schools or located in IP communities, so they have already secured the endorsement and they have completed the requirements, no, as stipulated in the LCAC guidelines. Okay, all participating schools have developed their respective contingency plans, which were already submitted to the respective LGUs. And all SDOs have prepared and reported their implementation plans during the consultations of SDOs and regional MANCO meetings. So for information of our media partners, so the actual plan of our schools or the actual implementation plans guided by their respective division offices were presented to our regional offices for review, vetting, and possible adjustment. And the regional directors gave these reports to us yesterday. So for Region 12 of Sargen, all participating schools are fully prepared. We'll hear na lang the update of RD Charlie on this. No? And then lastly, for Caraga, all participating schools have started their simulation activities. San Francisco LGU even provided a vehicle for the transportation of the students. No? So these are just one of the manifestations how our LGUs have supported, no, our efforts for the pilot face-to-face. Next slide, please. Before we look at the pictures, just to walk you through our classrooms, no, as presented by the regional directors. In terms of vaccination, we have already almost, no, all the schools teaching personnel that will participate, no, in the pilot implementation are fully vaccinated. If there are teachers who are not yet vaccinated, substitutions, no, are being undertaken by our respective regions and divisions So to ensure that all the personnel that will handle our pilot face-to-face classes are fully vaccinated. So these are just some of the pictures of how the classrooms are being prepared, no, for the pilot implementation. Okay, next slide, please. This is in Region 3, in Zambales. Okay, same in Zambales. Can we go back to the previous slide? Just to highlight that, ayan, meron pa hong mga orientation. So aside from our orientation that being conducted by our bureaus, no, meron ding sariling orientation yung mga schools natin, but this community. Okay. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So this is Isok Sargent. I don't want to preempt the presentation of RD Charlie. So we'll just skip through this. Yeah, pakita lang natin in passing. Yeah, next slide. Okay. So as I've mentioned at the start, we'll just share with you some information on the Ocular visit as a way of finally validating our schools that will participate, no, in the pilot face-to-face. Okay, next slide. So in total, the number of schools to be visited at least before November 15 or on the day itself are 37 schools, no? And the number of visiting DepEd official as of now is 21. Okay, next slide, please. So baka interesado yung ating media partners. So these are the schools that will be visited, no, by our EXICOM and MANCOM officials. So yeah, isa-isa na lang natin. Okay, Tongos, Alao-Ao, Patagan, San Isidro, Bitika, Buanga, Dogod, Dumalneg High School, Cagayan. Okay, next slide, please. Sige, let me just run through that. Anyway, I think PAS will provide our media partners copies of these presentations. Next slide. Okay, so I'll not dwell on this anymore because I think this was already the highlights of which have been presented by Director Roger. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, so some of the pictures, hindi nagpakita si Director Roger ng picture pero ito yung picture, and I think in the DepEd FB page meron din tayong picture, no, ng Tamulaya Elementary. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So Director Nina, that's all. Thank you for listening and giving us the opportunity to present our updates. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, ASEC Malcolm, for your updates. At this point naman po, we'll still be receiving updates, this time on financial matters naman. Upang bigyan tayo ng financial report kaugnay sa ipinapatupad nating pilot limited face-to-face classes, may I now call on USEC Annalyn Sevilla. USEC Ann, magandang tanghali po.
Magandang tanghali ni Director Nina, sa ating lahat, sa ating Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones, sa mga kapamilya at kasamahan sa DepEd at syempre ang ating mga media partners. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. After ng presentation ng mga plano, actual ocular inspection, we would like to give you updates on the financial implications of all of this, especially in our preparation for the face-to-face come back to school, no? Safe back to school program po ng ating Department of Education. Let's start, please. The one helping us. You can see the slides, Director Nina.
Yes, USEC Ann.
Thank you. Okay, so to start with, we are anchoring all of this preparation on the joint circular of DOH and DepEd. Alam natin na mayroon na pong kasunduan. Hindi lamang po ang kagawaran ng edukasyon ang nagpaplano at nagsisiguro sa inyo, kung hindi pati po ang ating kagawaran ng kalusugan, Department of Health. And through this DepEd-DOH Joint Memorandum Circular, ito po ang naging batayan natin kung ano yung mga financial implications sa mga provisions ng joint circular na ito, ay may mga dapat tayo na paghandaan. So in the next slide, you will see that we have also downloaded additional. We're saying additional because even before the joint memorandum circular, the Department of Education has already prepared the schools. Hindi naman po talagang sarado ang ating mga eskwelahan sapagkat ang ating mga guro, punong guro, at mga kagawad or nagtatrabaho sa Department of Education ay pumapasok po sa ating mga eskwelahan. Kaya kailangan na i-ready po natin ang mga schools physically, mentally, and of course socially. For this pilot face-to-face stage, we have 100 schools na na-identify, na finalize. So I am always on standby. At once na finalize na po nila itong 100 schools, nag-issue na po tayo ng guidelines to release the 100,000 per school as an initial support fund to them, with the guidelines, with the list. We have downloaded last week the allotment cover of 100,000 per school, and also the cash equivalent. No? Usually po dapat i-request pa yan sa DBM para magkaroon ng cash yung binigay natin na allotment. Pero ang ginawa po natin, pati po yung cash, ibinigay na natin sa kanila dahil marami sa mga napiling eskwelahan, ako yung nakikinig kanina, ay mga IT schools. Malayo po yan, mayroong nasa kabundukan, nasa gitna ng isla, at marami po yung mga probinsya malalayo sa mga division offices natin. So kailangan po talaga na ready cash din yung ating maibigay sa kanila. So they are ready with this, and I will repeat, bago po itong additional na ito, meron na po kami na i-release sometime in September, a total of 4.7 billion for the entire schools under DepEd. Na-report ko rin po ito sa isang press con na ating ginawa para naman sa opening of school nung school year nung September. So very fresh pa po yun, at ito ay isang supplemental or additional na ginawa natin. So kapag po nagde-release ng pera ang ating kagawaran, meron din po in the next slide, you will see USEC NEPO and I, with the approval of the Secretary, issued the guidelines on where we will use, how we will use the supplemental budget. At kung nakita niyo po ito kanina kay Director Roger, ito yung framework natin, safe operation, teaching and learning, including the most marginalized, ensuring well-being and protection. These are the activities that will necessitate funding support. Kaya naka-anchor din po dyan yung guidelines natin. And you will see in the next slide, ano in particular are the activities na pag sinabi natin, ito pong additional na fund na ito will follow all activities na nakalagay po sa dalawang issuances. Una, yung issuances ng DepEd and DOH, at pangalawa, yung issuance po namin nung 2020 pa. June 25, 2020, our Secretary already issued the policy and direction to make our schools and offices compliant with all the health standards. So since June 2020, we're already doing the increased physical and mental resilience, we reduce contact, we reduce transmission, and we should reduce duration of infection. All of these activities can be funded using the additional MOE. Then we go back to the DepEd and DOH Joint Memorandum Circular. What are the new activities? Safe operation, that means we need to manage our school operation. There's an additional activity, home school coordination. You can see that the parents are the one who attended the orientation. Siyempre, meron po tayong dapat na paghandaan dyan ng mga activities. Ensuring teaching and learning delivery, bago nga po, blended learning tayo. Including the most marginalized, and here you can see in our list, we have included our IP community, and I think there are also some special education learners na dapat po maisama rin natin dahil nangangailangan ng limited face-to-face interaction. And last, but of course not the least, but very much important, is the ensuring our well-being and protection. So kasama po dyan yung mga strategies on how to prevent COVID-19, strategy to isolate and treat COVID-19, and the psychosocial support. So, ano ho yan, holistic na mga activities, and of course, they need additional funding to implement and make sure that these are all followed. So, yan po muna, updates for our financial. Ito po yung pilot, but maybe I can end with saying that we're also preparing for the expanded stage. Kasi nalalapit na po yan. After the pilot study, and I think magiging parallel na rin yan, ay magkakaroon tayo ng expansion stage, and we are prepared financially for the expansion stage for this year as well and the next year. And we will be having our last stage of the budget hearing for 2022 sa Senate next week. At doon po sana ay masuportahan din tayo na makaprepare tayo sufficiently financially for our comeback, safe back to school ng ating Department of Education. Maraming salamat at magandang araw po sa inyong ulit.
Thank you very much, Yusek Ann, and that's very reassuring to know. May budget po, sabi ni Yusek Ann. So, ayan. Ngayon naman, aalamin natin ang paghahanda mismo sa mga regions sa ating mga field offices. Though nakapagbigay na po ng very comprehensive update or report si ASEC Malcolm Garma kanina, ngayon makakausap natin mismo ang ating officials na nasa field. Una ko na pong tatawagin from Region 3, andito si SDS Romeo Alip ng SDO Zambales. At nakasuporta din po si Regional Director May Eflar. Ayan, magandang tanghali, SDS Romeo Alip.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning po sa ating Madam Secretary, sa inyo po lahat, kay ASEC Garma, sa ating media partners. Good morning po. Can I have that slide number 1, ma'am, please? Ito po yung pilot implementation of face-to-face classes. So yung slide number 1. The Division of Zambales will pilot face-to-face classes in 10 schools, particularly in the municipalities of San Marcelino, with 2 schools, San Marcelino National High School Annex and Baliwet Elementary School. In San Felipe, we have 1 school, Banawen Elementary School, and Botolan with 7 Baitan schools, Belbel, Burgos, Magisgis, Morasa, Nacolcol, Uwaog, Niblok, and Palis, and elementary school. All 10 schools are iPad schools. Next slide, please. So 9 elementary schools will offer kinder to grade 3, while 1 school will offer senior high school TDL. For this, we have 519 learners and 75 teachers will be involved. So, as regards to physical preparations, all 10 schools ensured availability of functional wash areas and designated an area for triage. They also posted markings and signages in the local dialect, which is Zambal, to ensure adherence to health protocols such as physical distancing, wearing of face masks, and proper hand sanitation. The classrooms were arranged and prepared following the required standard. However, since these schools are in the mountain areas and majority of the classrooms were makeshift buildings structure, instead of marking the chairs with X, some schools opted to put exact number of chairs also to avoid confusion among learners. There are designated areas to serve as isolation area and school clinics. School heads and teachers reached out to stakeholders to support these preparations, and they were overwhelmed with the assistance they have been receiving. Next slide, please. In terms of LGU concurrence, support from the NCIP and the community, the provincial government and concerned municipal governments with the Department of Health officials and NCIP Director Randy Barmoles expressed their full support in the pilot implementation of face-to-face classes through a memorandum of agreement. Some of the counterparts of the LGU, as stated in the memorandum of agreement, are the following. Number one, free rapid antigen tests and RT-PCR for teachers. Governor John Idani ensured that these tests are required before teachers go back after 2 weeks. Governor and mayors will also provide additional learning facilitators to ensure learning continuity if in case teachers need to be quarantined or isolated. Number two, the concerned municipal governments down to the barangay officials will be assisting in full capacity for logistic concerns, security, and health emergencies. Next, LGUs will also provide necessary augmentation to food and supplies of teachers who opted to stay in school for the duration of the implementation. Local government units also expressed their support through the provision of health-related supplies and some learning materials. Next slide. Next slide, please. As regards to class schedules, all 10 schools followed the class schedule suggested in the joint memorandum circular. To ensure that these are followed, SDO Zambales, through the Curriculum Implementation Division, provided orientations and technical assistance to concern the school heads and teachers regarding class programming and scheduling. This was scheduled last November 3 and 4. Implementing schools had their class programs presented during conference with SDO composite team, and technical assistance was already given. For kindergarten, classes begin at 8 o'clock in the morning and end up 11 in the morning for a total of 180 minutes. While for grades 1 to 3, classes begin at 7:30 and end up 11:30 for a total of 240 minutes. For senior high school, classes begin at 8 o'clock and end up at 11:30 in the morning. All classes are on-site or face-to-face in the morning and printed modular in the afternoon. Next slide, please. In terms of vaccination status of teachers, out of the 75 participating teachers of the 10 schools, 11 or 15% are partially vaccinated, first dose only. 43 or 57% are fully vaccinated, while 21 or 20% are scheduled for vaccination within the week. In terms of well-being and protection, the schools have procured health-related materials using the downloaded support fund from DepEd, program support fund for iPad and other sources. So we believe that with your support, we pray that this pilot implementation will be a success. Thank you and God bless us all.
Maraming salamat, SDS Romeo Alip, for your updates. Ngayon naman po, mula sa Region 3, dumako po tayo sa Region 12. Makakasama po natin for his updates si RD Carlito Rocaforth. RD Charlie, hello po.
Yes, thank you, Director Linya, our dear Secretary, Ma'am Liling Magtolis Briones, Yusek Ann, Asik Malcolm, Director Roger, Director May, and SDS Romy, and to all our media partners, a pleasant afternoon to everyone. I will present the status of readiness of our schools for the limited face-to-face classes. And this is the next slide, Anton. This is the outline of my presentation. The participating schools and students, limited face-to-face physical preparations and updates, coordination with the stakeholders, LGU, barangay officials, parents, and other stakeholders, vaccination status of teaching and non-teaching staff, our class schedules, and some of footages or pictures of limited face-to-face preparation. So, but before that, I would like to inform everyone that DepEd Region 12, also known as SOCSargen Region or DepEd SOCSargen, is composed of four provincial divisions of South Cotabato, Sultan Kudarat, and Sarangani, and four city divisions of General Santos, Coronadal, Quindapawan, and Tacurong City. Last year, our enrollment was 1,136,382, and for this school year, we have an increase of 2% and our present enrollment is 1,161,031. Aside from being an ISO certified region, DepEd 12 is also a level 2 prime HRM bronze awardee, and recently, last October 27, we got our safety seal certification, evaluated and certified by the joint TWG of Department of Health, DTI, DILG, DOLE, and DOT. So for our face-to-face classes, we have 5 schools in DepEd SOCSargen to implement this pilot limited face-to-face classes. We have one in Kidapawan, that Paco National High School, Bato Elementary School in North Cotabato or Cotabato Province, Aspang Elementary School in General Santos City, Nelmida Elementary School, an IP school in Coronadal City, and NED National High School in South Cotabato. We have a total of 633 learners that involved in this limited face-to-face classes, and based on the report of our schools division offices and school heads, all of those learners got their parents' permit or parents' consent. With regards to managing school operations, we have Paco National High School is 100% ready on shared responsibility, alternative work arrangement, classroom layout and structure, the school traffic management. I personally visited the school also, the protective measures, hygiene practices and safety procedures, communication strategy, and contingency plan. So all the schools, the 5 schools, please. Next slide. Okay, the other slide. Okay, so all of these schools are 100% ready in terms of managing school operations. I personally visited all the 5 schools that will implement limited face-to-face, and the school head presented their specific school plan on the implementation of limited face-to-face. So with regards to physical preparation and updates, we can safely say that the 5 schools in Region 12 are 100% ready for November 15, opening of pilot limited face-to-face classes. On the next slide is the status of coordination with the LGU, barangay officials, parents, and other stakeholders. In Kidapawan City, yesterday, the good mayor was present during their simulation activity, and he expressed and he said that he allotted and released 600,000 for Paco National High School from their SEF as a financial support for this limited face-to-face. In North Cotabato, Bato Elementary School, I was there last Friday together with Governor Nancy Catamco, and we really observed the readiness of the school in terms of physical aspects. Actually, this Bato Elementary School is a very far also elementary school in North Cotabato in the municipality of Makilala, and in 2019 the school was totally wiped out by a landslide caused by 2019 earthquake. So they are now using a temporary learning shelter built by LGU Makilala and the provincial government, but still those TLS they pass the requirements set by the Joint Memorandum Circular of DepEd and DOH. During the simulation activity, the representative of DOH Region 12 and the provincial health department were also present, and we found out that okay naman po yung kanilang TLS. Pumasa po siya sa requirement. General Santos City, in Aspang Elementary School, we can say it is also 100% ready together with Nelmida, an IP school. We also have the permit coming from NCIP, and also an approval or letter of support from the Council of Elders in that particular school. South Cotabato, the NED National High School. I met the mayor yesterday during my visit to that school, and he also support and request also the superintendent, and he also told me his intention to open more schools in South Cotabato for the expansion of this limited face-to-face classes. Next slide is the vaccination status of our teaching and non-teaching staff. We have a total of 62 teachers, and 88.71 teachers, or a total of 55, are fully vaccinated. 7 teachers are for vaccination. So based on my personal interview to those unvaccinated teachers, these are the reason. Yung isa po pregnant, then ang isa first dose pa lang, so dalawa yung first dose, and the promise is that they will be fully vaccinated before November 15, or this week they will be vaccinated. So for the class schedules, same is true with the Region 12. We follow the suggested schedule in Joint Memorandum Circular in all of our schools. So in Paco National High School, we have 10 classes for grades 11 and 12. For Bato, we have 4 classes, K to 3. Aspang, K to 3, 4 classes also. And the school head and the schools division superintendent also requested for the extension of classes for grades 4, 5, and 6, considering that they have a very small number of learners, but still our answer is for now it's K to 3 only, because we have to seek approval from the president. For Nelmida, we have 12 classes from kinder to 3, and for NED National High School, 4 classes for grades 11 and 12. So in terms of class schedules, we can say also that those schools are 100% ready for the opening of limited face-to-face. So next slide are the samples of class schedules. So the next slide. On the next slide. Okay. So to monitor the status of our pilot implementation of limited face-to-face, the regional office organized actually 5 teams to monitor the implementation of the limited face-to-face. So lahat po ng teams na yan ay nakapag-monitor na, and on Monday they will be back to their school assignment in order to monitor the implementation or the opening of the pilot limited face-to-face classes. So this is our timeline for quality assurance, technical assistance, monitoring and evaluation activities. October 11 to 15, conducted na po yan. Then hanggang November 4 to 5. So on November 15, our regional field technical assistance team will monitor the opening of pilot schools for face-to-face classes. So December 21 to 22, that will be our initial assessment. And on January, we will conduct evaluation research entitled Pilot Implementation of Face-to-Face Classes in DepEd Sargent, Challenges, Innovations, and Strategic Directions for Expansion. So the following slides are the photos of actual visit of on the simulation and actual visit of division superintendents and yours truly to the 5 schools that will implement the limited face-to-face classes. So we are hoping that considering the readiness of these 5 schools, we are hoping that more schools in DepEd Region 12 will be included in the expansion of these limited face-to-face classes. Thank you so much, and mabuhay po tayo.
Maraming salamat, RD Charlie, for your updates. And it's good to know po that the schools under your region are very much prepared. At maganda po yung suporta ng ating governor at pati mayor. Thank you very much. And now, so that we can proceed with our program, bago po natin buksan ang talakayan kasama ang ating mga media partners, ating munang pakinggan ang mensahe mula sa ina ng kagawaran. Secretary Leonor Magtolis-Briones.
Good afternoon. Afternoon na. I don't think I should speak lengthily dahil comprehensive na yung coverage ng reportage ng ating mga DepEd officials. Ako ay nagpapasalamat sa kanila dahil kitang-kita na itong pag-implement natin ng face-to-face ay resulta ng matinding trabaho, research, lakad, bisita, at mga debate sa loob ng DepEd mismo. Kaya kung pwede lang, Director Nina, mag-proceed na tayo sa open forum para kasi na-cover na lahat ng gusto kong sabihin ng ating mga members ng DepEd family. Kitang-kita na ito ay hindi gawain ng isang tao lamang, kundi yung buong DepEd has been involved in this pilot implementation. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Briones. At gaya nga po ng sabi ni Secretary, sisimulan na natin ang ating actual open forum. So we would just like to remind our media partners that as we proceed with our question and answer po, kindly turn on, of course, unmute yourselves, turn on your microphone and as well as your cameras when you are called to ask your questions. And also, questions not related dun sa pilot implementation ng face-to-face classes will be referred to the concerned offices and we will be responding to them via Viber na lamang po. All right, so to start, let's call in our first media representative. Tatawagin ko po from Bombo Radio Coronadal, Miss Jevelyn Endaya.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon po. We can't see you po, but we can hear you clearly. You can ask your question. Miss Javelin,
Ayan. Hello, good afternoon po. Nakikita na po ako.
yes.
Yes, of course, good afternoon to Secretary Briones and everyone. Question po namin from Bomboradyo Coronadal sa South Cotabato sa Mindanao po. Unang-una, ano yung magiging garantiya po natin na ligtas ang mga estudyante sa mga paaralan na kabilang po sa limited face-to-face classes sa darating po na Nobyembre 15?
Sa panahon ng pandemya, mahirap magsabi na garantiya 100%. Ang masasabi lang namin, lahat na posibilidad aming na pag-aralan, lahat ng mga options aming pinagpipilian, at yung cooperation, kaya nga sinasabi namin shared responsibility ito, hindi lamang sa isang ahensya, kundi sa buong bansa, sa buong komunidad. Kaya mahalaga, halimbawa, ang suporta ng local government sector, ang consent ng parents, at saka yung aming mga facilities kailangan friendly at handa din para sa mga requirements ng face-to-face, pati na yung nagbibigay ng iba't ibang service. Kaya hindi ko sinasabi na nagagaranti ako na 100% na magiging successful, pero napakataas ng aming hopes, napakataas ng aming assessment na this pilot will be successful. Because out of 61,000 schools, we are involving only 100. Kasi nga, yung Senado noon, worried sila na baka malaki ang sample. At saka mga possible complications. This is why we need the local governments really. And we need also the consent of the parents as well as those who are rendering services to our different schools. So lahat na posibilidad, pinag-aralan namin, lahat ng solusyon, pinag-isipan, mayroon tayong contingency plans, mayroon tayong very detailed plans sa pag-implement nito, pati yung mga school grades na kailangan na isama dito sa ating pilot. Ito ay base sa advice ng ating mga health experts. At it makes us feel comfortable dahil maraming nagsusuporta, ahensya ng gobyerno at saka civil society as well as the parents themselves. So, napakalaki ng chances ng success nito for these 100 schools. Pero hindi ko masasabing fully guaranteed kasi nangyari na yon dati. We would have started 6 months ago or more than 6 months ago, as early as January this year. Yun nga lang, may sumulpot na ibang variant. Kaya ngayon, mayroon tayong contingency plans kung anong gagawin in caso por caso, as they say in Visayan, na may mga challenges na susulpot. Pero pinaghahandaan yon. Thank you.
Ms. Javelin, would you have any other question po? Follow-up?
Follow-up question po for Secretary Briones. If ever, ano po yung magiging evaluation po natin para sa 100 schools sa darating na November 15 at sa susunod na mga buwan? Ito po ba ang magiging basihan po natin na maaaring makapagbukas na po tayo or sa susunod na school year ay lahat na po ng paaralan ay dun na sa face-to-face classes po?
Napakaganda ng tanong mo. Parang inunahan ninyo kami kasi doon ang direksyon namin. After the pilot, what? Para kayo mag-pilot-pilot na pagkatapos, ganun pa rin next year, 100 schools pa rin. So, magsasubmit kami ng memorandum sa President dahil we must remember that the amended law provides that it should be the President the president will be the one to decide on opening of classes, kung kailan, and he has a say on the contempt, etc. So, magsusubmit kami within today, late tonight, a report on the updates to the president, and we'll be requesting him na ipaubaya na niya sa Department of Health at saka sa Department of Education ang mga desisyon. Kasi yung sa batas nagsasabi ang presidente ang magdedesisyon. Na kung pwedeng ano niya sa amin, ipasa niya sa amin yung authority na yan o i-assign niya kami para mas mabilis ang pag-expand natin. If things work out as we are hoping that things will work out, with everybody working, halatang-halata naman nakikita ninyo, mga undersecretaries ko at saka assistant secretaries are all out in the field making inspections. Regional directors hanggang gabi pinupuntahan yung mga malalayang lugar because karamihan ng 100 schools are in very isolated places. Binibisita talaga to make sure that we really are hoping and praying that this pilot will be a success because it will lead us to an expansion of the program itself, and it will be good for our learners and it will be good for society. So yun, we're going to ask to report to the president, ask his permission that he will authorize Department of Health and the Department of Education to make decisions as to the expansion, the number, etc., etc. So hindi na siya masyadong maistorbo. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Secretary, for the response, and we'd also like to thank Ms. Jevelyn of Bombo Radio Coronadal. Ngayon naman po, to proceed, let's call on Lemizer Lozada ng 91.1 Max FM Tacorong. Andito po kaya, Lemizer Lozada? If our media representative is not present in the Zoom meeting, babasahin na lang po natin ang question. The first question is, parang gaya na rin po ito ng naitanong, no? Pero, ayan, sige. Ako na lang po magbabasa. How can we assure that our learners are safe from COVID-19 in the implementation of face-to-face classes since nasa 12 to 17 years old pa lang ang binibigyan ng vaccine?
Napakagandang tanong din. Mahalaga ito lalo na para sa mga parents, no, at sa mga communities. Una, on a worldwide scale, including in the Philippines, lumalabas na ang mga kabataan, mas mataas ang level ng resistance nila to COVID-19. Makikita natin na 0.03% lamang sa ating total number of affected COVID patients ang mga below 10 years old. And all over the world, the researches show this blessing on the children kasi mataas ang level ng resistance nila. So that's one. Kaya ang mga eksperto natin, mga pediatricians natin na eksperto sa mga bata, nag-advise sa dalawang ahensya ng Department of Health at sa DepEd na mag-focus on the younger children kasi one, they need it more, they need face-to-face sessions more kasi tinuform pa yung kanilang mga manners, yung kanilang dealing with their fellow children, etc. Yung kanilang values, pinoform pa natin. So, mas effective yung face-to-face talaga. At the other consideration is they tend to be more resistant, but they can also be carriers. So, yun ang danger niyan. That's why we are taking all the possible steps to prevent such an occurrence na natatakutan ang concern ni Mr. Lozada na mas safe ang mga bata natin. Kaya we prefer our teachers to be vaccinated. We prefer our staff to be vaccinated. And kailangan binibrief palagi ang mga teachers at saka parents para ma-monitor nila ang estado ng mga bata to keep them safe. Ayun.
Thank you very much, Secretary. May pangalawa pong tanong, and we can also ask inputs from Yusek and maya-maya po after the Secretary has responded. So the second question is, how about sa mga schools na hindi kasali sa pilot run? May dagdag budget or support ba para sa learning materials ng mga estudyante ang madadagdagan ngayong taon?
Si Yusik Ann ang makakasagot niyan. Pero ako, as a policy maker, alam ko na mas malaki ngayon ang hinihingi namin ng DepEd sa mga authorities natin ng budget support para sa lahat. Pero itong pilot schools natin, we pay special attention dahil we will have to do everything to face possible challenges. Kaya may dagdag talagang may dagdag na funds na binibigay natin sa mga schools na ito. Kasi may mga requirements kasi compared to those schools which are engaged largely in the other aspects of blended learning, like the modules and so on and so forth. Pero si Yusek Ann ang kayang-kayang sagutin yan. And she can give the exact numbers.
Okay. Yusek Ann?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Director Nina. Kanina sinabi ko rin po na with or without the pilot implementation, we have been preparing for a blended learning approach, blended learning delivery approach. At yung pong plano at budget natin ay ayos na po nitong 2021 and 2022 to deliver such blended learning approach. And even before the opening of the school year ng September, ay nakapagbigay na po tayo ng additional na pondo sa lahat ng eskwelahan. Hindi lamang po yung magkakaroon ng limited face-to-face. Yan po ay in preparation for the new structure in the school, new arrangement in the physical classroom, pati rin po yung mental at saka physical preparation ng ating mga manggagawa or lalo na po yung ating mga guro. Ngayon pong may pilot phase tayo, nagbigay na po tayo ng additional kasi meron din po mga effort at saka napakalaki rin po ng commitment na kanilang binubuhos para magtuloy at magkaroon ng successful result itong ating pilot face-to-face. And let me also remind everyone and we take this opportunity to thank the shared responsibility framework na nangyayari. Hindi lamang po sa suporta at commitment kung hindi sa financial shared responsibility. We're saying this because a lot of our local government units, chief, heads, mayors, even congressmen, congresswomen, governors, pati po sa barangay level, ngayon niyo po mararamdaman ang presensya at ang binibigay na importansya sa edukasyon, lalo na po sa mga bata. Ito pong mga kinder to grade 3 at yung pong napili natin na mga sasali sa pilot school ay very much protected, hindi lamang po emotionally and physically, but we're saying financially, because it's a government-wide, national and local. DOH is also preparing, yung pong sinasabi nila na preparasyon, paano kung may nangyari. We're doing a contingency plan. Part po yan ng joint circular ng DOH and DepEd. At kung hindi po sila masasali, yun po yung meat ng question niya, hindi kasali, wag pong mag-alala kasi naibigay na po yung kanilang share. And kung mag-expand more than 100, we're also prepared because we reserve a portion of our funding here at the central office really for the pilot and expanded stage of our face-to-face, back to school, back safe to school program po natin. Thank you, Director Nina.
Maraming salamat, Yusek Ann, for your additional inputs. And yes, we will proceed with our next media partner. Tawagin po natin Gracie Rutao ng ABS-CBN Pampanga.
Hello po, good afternoon. Yes po, itatanong ko lang po kung ipupush nyo po ba na dapat vaccinated na yung lahat ng bata nakasali dito sa face-to-face? Tapos yung second question ko po, yung magkakaroon nga po ba ng regular swabbing or parang antigen just to check yung kalagayan ng mga bata. I mean, kung positive or negative sila or possible carriers po sila. Thank you.
Sa tanong kung ipupush na ba na dapat vaccinated ng mga bata, we are starting with those. Somebody correct me if I say it wrongly, no? Na ang inumpisa natin yung 12 to 17, no? Pero as I said, and I keep on repeating it, lahat ng mga pediatricians, associations, experts, nagsasabi na mataas talaga ang resistensya ng mga bata. They comprise only 0.0%, 0.3% of the total number of COVID affected members of our population. At saka, very, very small and negligible ito. So, kaya nga sabi nga nila, mas mabuting mas marami ang ating participants sa ating face-to-face na galing sa younger kids, no? Pero siyempre, ang preference natin for the senior high school and the junior high school, gusto natin yung mga vaccinated. Kasi may policy na, may decision na ang ating si Secretary Galvez na bigyan ng priority ang mga bata. Pero kasi itong sa younger children, di pa ganun, how do I say it? Kasi we need definite answers from research. Whatever decisions we may make has to be knowledge-based. Ang klaro is the older children. Itong sa younger children, tinitingnan pa ng maigi. Ang alam lang natin, talagang hindi sila masyadong affect sa Pilipinas at saka sa ibang bahagi ng mundo. Kaya at saka mas kailangan nila talaga ang face-to-face itong younger children natin. Baka may gustong mag-volunteer sa aming team dito ngayon ng additional information kung paano tayo nag-decide ng ganon. It's always in consultation with the Department of Health. Dahil ang expertise sa health hindi naman sa amin, kami is in the teaching side. Oo. So sila ang nag-advise at unanimous ang nila, 5 experts groups ang tinanong namin. Pareho ang sagot Oo. At kami din, since the beginning of the year, alam mo Gracie, we have been monitoring also research studies because I am a researcher and many of our deputy people are also researchers. So they're monitoring researches all over the world kung what are the newest things, etc. Thank you.
Secretary, we can call on ASEC Malcolm if he has additional inputs.
Okay, thank you, Director Nina. Yesterday, Secretary, in our meeting with DOH, I actually asked the same questions to you, Sec Bergere. So for the first question, Gracie, doon sa bakuna, so definitely wala pang policy o wala pang pinag-uusapan na bakuna for the younger kids. So it's still 12 to 17 pa din. If it's being if we are going to require, sa ngayon hindi po natin requirement yung participation ng ating 17 to 18 years old in the senior high school na sila ay bakunado. But of course, we would like to encourage our 17-year-old learners in the senior high school or 18-year-old learners to be vaccinated. But definitely for the younger grade level, Gracie, wala pa talaga, Now, do sa swab test, I actually asked the same question. Kung isa-subject ba natin sa swab test or antigen test yung mga maliliit na bata? Kasi we really cannot imagine the small children being undergoing the swab test, Kasi very very traumatic. I mean, even for us adults, mahirap. And the answer of DOH is really no. They will not be subjected to antigen testing or swab test, but we will rely on symptoms. So automatic pag nag-symptoms ang bata, the usual protocol of isolation and contact tracing will be undertaken. So yan yung mahigpit na bilin ng ating counterparts sa DOH. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Secretary.
Ayun, Malcolm confirmed what I said, that we don't have very clear or definitive policy on the matter of the younger children. What we know is that they are resistant. What we also know is that having undergone it ourselves, the process of testing can be quite traumatic for, especially yung tutusukin yung ilong mo and all that. It's not the most pleasant experience, and the children might react, and the trauma will be with them for some time. Kaya pinag-aralan ng husto yan, and it's being done on a worldwide scale. And I think tinitingnan din yan dito sa atin, because the OSP is by the way, it's of interest to you, Gracie. The OSP is setting up a virology center. So yung mga tests which are being done abroad will most likely be done also here in the Philippines. And also, we just might reach a stage or a point where we will be developing our own vaccines. Kasi we have the expertise kasi we may not necessarily have the money, but we certainly have the expertise. So we are moving in that direction as a country. Sige, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gracie. We have room for one more question from you. Would you have any follow-up?
I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Ayan, maraming salamat po. Next media partner, we would like to call on ARD Carlo Dato ng PIA Region 3.
Gandang tanghali po. Ang katanungan ko po ay actually kadikit ng tanong ni Ma'am Gracie. Paano po natin maiiwasan na magkaroon ng kumpulan yung mga bata, lalo na tuwing recess at saka break time nila? And second po, yun po bang mga parents and guardians na kasama ng ating mga bata kailangan bakunado? Or how do we check na baka yung guardians na kasama pa nila ang dahilan ng pagkakahawa ng mga bata? Maraming salamat po.
Yung unang question mo, kung whole day ba papasok ang mga estudyante, ang alam ko sa observation natin sa practices na ibang bansa, pagtapos na yung classes ng mga bata, they are required to go home. And generally, in most countries, sumusunod naman yung mga bata. Siguro makikita natin sa pilot kung susunod ba yung mga bata pag sasabihin natin umuwi na kayo. Oo. Pero nandiyan naman yung mga teachers, nandiyan naman yung staff to make sure na kasi of course lahat ng bata gusto namang maglaro o gusto maglinger o maghihintayan ng kanilang mga kaibigan o ng sundo. So tingnan natin kung ano ang behavior nila. But as far as I know, pag tapos na yung session nila, pinapauwi na sila para limited yung exposure. Kaya sinasabi ko palagi, Carlo, in our press conference, that the face-to-face that we are looking forward to is different from the face-to-face that we are used to, where you can linger, where you can play, you don't have to go home immediately while waiting for your yaya or your sundo, yung mga ganon. Ang face-to-face na alam ko sa ibang mga countries, they really monitor very carefully so that they can also limit the risks of the children. Tapos yung sinasabi na walang kumpulan ng mga bata, that's where the teachers come in. That's where the school authorities come in. And this is also where the national authorities can also be participants, no? Kasi halimbawa, nagtanong ako sa isang bansa na palagi nating tinitingnan kung anong ginagawa nila. Nagtanong ako, mayroon bang parents consent na required for face-to-face? Ang sagot, walang parents consent. It is mandatory when the government decides on a particular approach, because the minister has the full authority to make decisions. That's it. Sa atin, we're really going out of the way to consider all possibilities. Kaya gusto nating ma-involve ang parents. Sa ibang bansa, na itong bansa na paborito ko, walang government decides, that's it. Government decides you're going to go to school for 4 hours and then you go home afterwards, that's it. And the children also, comply. So, we will see to it that these considerations will also be closely monitored, because we really want to reduce the risk of kasi pilot pa naman ito, many things depend on how this pilot will work out. Kaya magre-report na nga kami sa President na kung pwede, considering all the preparations, that if things go well, kung pwedeng i-allow na niya ang Department of Health at saka Education ang mag-make ng decisions about expanding the program. So, ayun, Carlo. Let's see how the children will behave. Okay.
Yun po, yung next question ko po, yung sa guardians po ba, are they required to have swab test? Yung mga guardians po ng mga mas bata nating students po.
We would like to, alam naman natin the general policy that vaccination is voluntary, di ba? And this is a point of legal discussions. So, but we would like to encourage, kasi nakita namin, ako personally, pinabasa ko yung report about children getting COVID. Nakukuha sa halimbawa from parents, from transportation, from places that they go to, not necessarily in school, kasi our schools are wala naman sa blended learning, we use other modalities, pero tayo ang biniblame kung bakit may mga few isolated cases of children catching COVID. So they must have gotten it elsewhere. So yun ang gusto natin tingnan at i-encourage natin, dahil ngayon is the thinking is walang pilitan. At nakikita naman natin kung minsan buong pamilya, may mga instances na ganon, the child is resistant, baka maging carrier din ang bata without even being aware of it. So, sige Carlo.
Secretary, may we ask ASEC Malcolm if he has any additional inputs on this current discussion?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Nina. Thank you, Secretary. Carlo, again, in our meeting with DOH yesterday, isa ito sa pinag-usapan, no? In fact, the direction now is for us to determine yung members of the household, yung mga learners who will participate. Kasi there's a possibility if there are still unvaccinated members of the family, DOH and the National Task Force will prioritize them for vaccination if they are willing to undergo vaccination. So that's the direction. So we just have to gather the profile of our learners who will participate, and kasama do sa profiling natin yung pakita yung profile ng vaccination ng kanilang kanya-kanyang pamilya. So that's the direction. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you very much, ASEC Malcolm. Maraming salamat. ARD Carlo, thank you for joining us today. To proceed, we now call on from Inquirer, Jane Bautista.
Hello po. Yan. Regarding the plastic barriers installed sa mga chairs po, some are saying that it was unnecessary since after classes, yung katulad nga po nung nabanggit kanina, the kids might eventually clump together. So, ano po yung basis ng DepEd for requiring these?
Or requiring what?
Yung plastic barriers po.
We want to be sure, because we do contact tracing when a child, God forbid, gets infected. So we want to ensure that the environment of the schools themselves, kasi sasabihin, ititrack mo yan saan nakuha? Sa school, sa transport, sa bahay, para the medical authorities can take the appropriate steps. So we want to be sure that the schools will not be the source of infection for children in case those things happen. And as I said, hopefully they don't. No, prayerfully they don't. These incidents don't happen. So linalagyan natin yan to be sure na, kasi magti-trace tayo saan kaya nakuha, saan pumunta ang bata, o kumusta yung sa bahay nila, ilan sila sa bahay nila, ano ang degree ng exposure, etc. etc. So may usefulness yan kasi it reduces the amount of work in contact tracing. That's first. Secondly, it also reduces the risk. Kasi if the child will spend 5 hours in face-to-face, for 5 hours the child is safe. So ganun ang rationale why, para mas madaling mag-determine kung sakaling mayroong accidents, may bad incidents, at saka para naman to make sure na talaga mag-offer tayo ng face-to-face and we are not keeping our schools safe. We are not keeping our schools clean. We don't put up barriers. The barriers are still useful. We eliminate one source of infection. Kasi we add a source of infection by authorizing face-to-face. Payagan natin. So, since payagan natin silang mag-face-to-face, we take all the precautions possible to prevent any accidents or untoward results. So, importante yon. Kaya that's one of our conditions. Our school facilities have to be ready for the requirements, for the health requirements of the Department of Health, which would include really social distancing.
Thank you, Secretary. So
I hope that responds to your concern, Jane.
Yes po, thank you po.
ASEC Malcolm, would you like to provide supplemental response?
Okay, yes, Director Nina. Miss Jane, the plastic barrier is, the basic requirement for our schools in preparation for the face-to-face is the spacing. So yun talaga yung importante, that we provide ample space between each learner while they're inside the classroom, plus the proper ventilation. So hindi naman talaga natin hahanapin kung wala silang plastic barrier. But like what the Secretary has mentioned, this is actually an additional layer of protection, the provision of plastic barriers. Alam mo, Jane, sa totoo lang, even the communities and the LGUs, these are the things, these are the visual things that will actually increase their level of confidence in allowing their children to go back to the classrooms. And we don't assume and we don't presume, Jane, that after classes magka-clamp up sila, because this is actually part of the schedules of our teachers. They have been oriented to really monitor the activities of our children and to teach our children how to observe the protocol, because this is already an opportunity for us in the sector of education to embed this in the education of our learners as young as possible. Kasi nga, ito na yung new normal natin, if ever. Ito na yon. So, hanggat maaga, makasanayan na ng ating mga mag-aaral itong pag-observe ng proper protocol. So, to answer your question, the basic requirement is the spacing, but the barriers are actually added protection for us to really pinpoint na talagang hindi na yan sa school kasi sobra-sobra na yung ating protocol na pinasusunod sa ating sa loob ng mga paaralan natin. Thank you, Director Nina.
Thank you, ASEC Malcolm. Ms. Jane, do you have a follow-up question?
Okay na po, thank you po.
Maraming salamat. And yes, as of this moment, we'll now call on our next media representative. Can we call on Ms. Ara Perez of ABS-CBN?
Hello po, good afternoon. Ano na lang po yung mga last minute na reminders natin sa schools, sa parents and LGU as we start the pilot implementation of face-to-face classes on Monday. Dahil alam naman po natin, parang iba-ibang emotions po sa Monday, no? Excitement, nandyan yung kaba. It's the first time in a long while na talagang pupunta po sa schools physically ang students, and meron po tayong young students and yung medyo may high school na. So ano po yung mapapayo natin, yung para bang mababalance po yung excitement nilang matuto and yung eagerness nilang matuto, and masusunod pa rin yung health protocols. Thank you.
I would like to go back, Ara, to yung sinabi ko kanina na the reason why we are advised to focus on the younger children is because this is an opportunity to have a major role in forming their behavior, forming their attitudes, etc., etc. Chance talaga natin ito for the younger children. So mahalaga yung question mo, and this is really an opportunity. So I would like to ask, for example, yung dalawang natin galing sa region, kung anong mga ginagawa nila, kasi at the level of the school na, yung tama ka, there's so much excitement, napili sila and they're very proud. Out of 61,000, you are one of the 100 schools. At ngayon makakita na sila ng ibang bata na dati ay sa screen lang. So siguro i-share sa atin nila ni RD kung ano yung mga steps at saka ano yung mga, but our officials right now are out in the field. Oo. Sila lang ni Yusek naiwan dito dahil because of this press conference, but most of them are out. Oo. Si Charlie at saka si
dito din po si RD May.
RD May, sige. Ikwento mo kung paano ninyo mamomotivate yung mga bata na sumunod sila sa protocol. Kasi in other countries hindi problema masyado yan dahil sanay yung mga bata na kung anong sabi ng teacher, anong sabi ng school ay susunod. But we have to find out first how our own children will react. So, Adime?
Ayan. RD May, good afternoon po.
Yes, good afternoon po sa lahat. Secretary, magandang hapon din po. Tungkol naman po sa pagsunod ng ating mga learners sa ating protocol, may mga nakalagay na po tayo ng mga signages din sa mga ating mga eskwelahan kung saan ay namadali nilang maintindihan, lalo na po sa Zambales. Nakasulat po ito sa ating mother tongue o yung Zambal. So madali po na masundan ng ating mga learners yung kung paano at ano yung mga dapat nilang i-observe habang sila ay nandoon sa ating paaralan. Ang ating mga learners naman, lalo na kung nandiyan ang ating mga teachers, no, napaka-obedient ng ating mga mag-aaral. So nagkaroon na rin po tayo ng orientation din sa mga parents kung paano nilang gagabayan yung kanilang mga anak. And I believe na doon po sa unang araw ng klase nila ay kasama ito, yung orientation sa ating mga learners kung paano na makasunod yung ating mga mag-aaral.
Maraming salamat, RD May. Si RD Charlie, meron po bang gustong idagdag?
Kasi Roger, mayroon ding idagdag.
Yes, thank you, Secretary, and thank you, Director Ninya. So, paano po namin ma-motivate yung mga bata natin to follow the health protocols? First, we conducted also the same with Region 3, orientation of parents and orientation of our learners, but we have health personnel coming from DOH and from our schools division offices and regional office to orient our learners. Kasi mas paniniwala kasi ng mga bata yung mga doctors natin na kung paano i-observe yung health protocol. And we can also avoid yung kanina yung nabanggit na pagkukumpulan ng mga bata kasi wala namang tayong bubuksan na school canteen, baon lahat ng mga bata. And in one of the simulation activities that I observed, nakita ko talaga na yung pagsunod ng mga even the kinder learners po natin. So sumusunod talaga sila, lalo na kung naipaliwanag sa kanila yung ibig sabihin ng mga signs. Actually, ang joke ng isang teacher doon, sinabi niya doon sa mga bata, wag pupunta dito sa may pula na markings kasi dito sa pula may COVID dito. Dito sa dilaw, walang COVID dito kayo pupunta. So yung mga bata, talaga makita mo sila pag labas ng room, pagpasok ng room, habang nagkaklase, doon lang talaga sa specific area designated by teachers, doon lang talaga sila pumupunta. Parang mayroon silang step na kung makita nila na red na pala to, bumabalik na kagad sila at naroon yung takot nila na pumunta doon sa area na hindi nila dapat puntahan. So aside from that, the parents and the community people also were oriented on what will happen and how are we going to do with this limited face-to-face classes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, RD Charlie, for sharing that best practice. May we call on now Director Roger?
Yes, thank you, Director Nina, and good afternoon, Ma'am Liling. I-share ko lang yung experience ko doon sa Tamulaya. Pumunta kami doon ni Yusik Nepo. Actually, ang una kong kinausap talaga doon yung parents. Habang si Yusik Nepo pinagkukumpulan ng media sa ng LGU, ako kinausap ko yung mayroong isang space doon na parang open space, hindi siya open space, yung covered court na yun ang designated na area for parents. So doon ako pumunta. And then ang sabi nila is that mas excited pa yung mga anak nila sa kanila sa pagpasok sa November 15. Tapos sabi ko sa kanila, wala po ba kayong agam-agam? Ay wala po kasi ang tagal na nga po namin itong inaantay. At yung mga bata halos araw-araw tinatanong kami kung kailan kami babalik sa school. So kaya both parents and students are excited doon sa November 15. Ngayon ang tanong ko sa parent is that paano nyo ma-ensure na yung bata ay magbe-behave sa loob ng klase, sa loob ng classroom. Sabi niya, mas sinusunod po ng mga anak namin yung yung mga teacher kaysa sa amin kasi halimbawa dito sa bahay pag na-initial sa sagot ng modules, bigla na lang yang lalabas sa bahay at maglalaro, walang mask kasi doon, Ma'am Liling, doon sa lugar na yon, since 2020 na magsimula ang lockdown hanggang napagpunta namin, wala ni isang case ng COVID doon sa lugar na yon. So kaya yung mga parents doon halos wala talagang katakot-takot sa COVID because they haven't experienced yung mala-lockdown. So, yun po, saka doon sa kumpulan, kaya nga po, dinesign ng DepEd na 3 hours lang ang stay ng bata doon sa school para lang maiwasan yung moment na mag-aalis sila ng mask. So, ibig sabihin, hindi sila expected na kumain doon sa loob ng school kasi 3 hours, tingin ko, di pa naman nagugutom yung anak. Kasi, in-advise namin yung parents na bago kayo umalis sa bahay, kayong dalawa, parent at yung bata, kumain ng maayos para hindi magutom, para hindi maghanap ng pagkain yung bata. So, naka-design po yan, kasama po yan doon sa consideration na ano yung mga moment na mag-aalis ng mask yung bata at yung parent. So, yun po, tingin ko mas magiging organized yung bata at behave pag nasa loob ng klase rather than sa loob ng kanilang bahay. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Director Roger. Yes, Yusek Ann?
Hi, with the permission of our secretary, I would like to take this opportunity to answer the question of Ara. Kasi ma'am, ang ganda ng tanong niya, anong message? Kasi we're all preparing. I think itong message natin, kailangan nating panindigan at gawin na yung sinasabing kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. And we are starting it with this pilot implementation. Things will never go back to normal. Yun po yung sasabihin natin. At tayo po yung nagkikreate ng bagong normal. And it's okay. That is okay. And we have to show them na kaya po natin gawin. At dito po sa pilot na ito, baka po magkaroon na rin ng confidence ang iba kasi nga po kaya ng bata. Eh di siguro lalo na po yung mga matatanda. So yun siguro yung pinaka payak or simple na message na sasabihin natin, tingnan ninyo, magagawa ng mga bata. So tayo mga matatanda, kailangan matuto sumunod din. We're saying this, Ara, because, for example, the recycling program, mas conscious at aware po ang mga bata ngayon. Makikita niyo po yung mga nagtatapon ng basura sa kung saan-saan, wala na po sa mga bata. Kasi naituro na po natin yung tamang values on the recycling and the love for environment. And all other things na ginagawa po natin ngayon. For example, pag lumindol, sino po ang unang yuyuko at sino hahanap ng safe space? At ito po, personal experience ko, yung anak ko po ang tagturo sa akin kasi ako nagpapanik. Pero yung anak ko nagsasabing, go down, mommy, and hanap tayo ng solid space, doon tayo. Napaka ano po nila, they say calm, and they know what to do. So let's do it also here now that we have a new normal, yung po mga bata. Ang umpisahan natin at tayo mga matatanda, mamamangha dahil kaya nila.
Yun nga ang sinasabi ko, Director Nina at Ara, nako-confirm din ni Roger na ang mga bata at a particular stage in their life listen to the teachers more than perhaps even to the parents. Nakikita ko yan sa mga na-observe ko yan sa mga bata. Halimbawa, mga outing, picnics, ganon, magkakalat. Yung mga oldies kasi hindi naman sila siguro naturuan ng bata pa sila. Ang bata ang magsabi, magagalit si teacher niyan. Ayaw ni teacher yan. Mayroong point sa buhay nila na kung anong sinasabi ng teacher, sinusunod ng bata, nagiging authority figure ang teacher. Kaya napakalaki ng responsibilidad and I think you are aware how seriously we look at the profession of teaching dahil malaki ang ating responsibility, ating pananagutan, even our personal behavior sa ating mga learners, etc. So, lahat na ito, hindi natin mapipredict lahat. Pero yung kung mga possibilities, we're thinking about it. Alam mo, ang maghahanap ng kung halimbawa, hindi naman yan ma-avoid, Ara, na there will be criticisms and there will be complaints. Sigurado yan. We can expect that. This will come from the oldest, the lolas, the lolos, who are used to a particular interpretation of what face-to-face is. Kasi yun ang nasanayan nila na gano'n na face-to-face. But yung face-to-face ngayon, even in other countries, is different. May disiplina yung face-to-face nila. Like you cannot be climbing trees or going up the rooftop or engaging in physical contact, etc., etc. And I believe that there is a chance that we'll be able to influence the behavior of our young learners, even with limited face-to-face. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Ms. Ara, do you have another question?
Thank you very much po. Just one last. Kung required po ba yung face shield all throughout the time na nasa school sila? Or baka pwedeng, like for students and teachers, baka pwedeng alisin pag nasa classroom and then ibalik pag aalis or papasok? Paano po ba yung rule sa face shield? Thank you.
Siguro ang makatanong uli si Asek Malcolm kasi sila ang nagsi-face to face with the Department of Health every week yan. How many times a week nagmi-meet on questions like the ones that you are raising? These are very practical possibilities. Okay. Si Asek
Malcolm.
Ara, hindi namin na-discuss specifically yung face shield, because honestly, we're not yet on the face shield. But the face mask, kumbaga, is non-negotiable. Talagang they have to wear the face mask all the time, while they're inside the classroom and even if they are already outside. So yung face shield lang, That's one thing that we will need to verify with DOH kung are we going to require the face shield, no? Dun sa mga bata. Kasi ang mahirap din, Miss Ara, yung ating mga nabibiling face shield kasi is not actually designed for small children. So baka bumagsak lang ng bumagsak. So that's one thing that we need to get the advice of DOH with. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Director Nina.
Thank you, ASIC Malcolm. So definitely, kung ano pong maging desisyon ng DOH on that, we will be complying. Thank you, Ms. Ara. Thank you very much. And now, we will have another question. This time, it's going to be coming from Jewa Bernardo ng ABS-CBN News Online. And for this question, I will be reading. The question reads, follow-up question for Director Masapol on safety seals. Does it mean that once a public school has been given a safety seal, they can conduct limited face-to-face classes as well?
It doesn't follow na ganon. Nasabi ko na nga kanina, ang unang mabibigyan ng safety seal once na-close na yung agreement with DTI, itong mga 100 public schools, no? So, yung pagbibigay ng safety seal ay gagawin natin ito para ipakita na ang school natin, kahit hindi pa sila mag-pilot, ay ready na sa next phase yung expansion. So, kahit na mayroon ka ng safety seal, tapos pag hindi ka pa na-identify ng DepEd sa DOH to offer a limited face-to-face, hindi ka pa pwedeng mag-open ng klase, no? But safe, kumbaga, certified ka na safe pag nabigyan ka na ng safety seal. So it doesn't follow na kapag meron ka ng safety seal ay pwede ka na. Mangangailangan pa rin ito ng authorization from DepEd and DOH at of course depende doon sa authorization for expansion ng ating Pangulo.
Maraming salamat for clarifying that, Director Roger. And our next question will be coming from Dano Tingkongko ng GMA 7. Dano Tingkongko ng GMA 7.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Secretary. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm just curious, I just want to ask this, kay Secretary, no? Kasi one thing that struck me was, when you mentioned, Secretary, na you're preparing for all possible all possibilities and you have contingency. Siguro just to operationalize it lang. And just for parents to be, I guess, aware or at least have a general idea, ano po ba itong possibilities na ito and what are the contingencies? So parang is it possible for us to like situationalize it? Like for instance, siguro yung pinakamabilis would be, kung merong isang bata na mag-positive sa COVID or magpakita ng sintomas ng COVID, ano ang gagawin, ano ang plano, ano yung protocol. Siguro just for parents to have, or parents of these learners na magpa-participate sa pilot face-to-face classes, just for them to have an idea. I understand na na-orient sila at some point, pero siguro for the public lang din to understand. Thank you.
Not only the parents have been given orientations, but the teachers as well. Kasi sila naman talagang makakita kasi yung sinabi nga natin kanina, in the case of very young children, we cannot be sticking sticks into their noses and risk accidents and all that and leave trauma to the children, no? So, ang bantayan natin yung mga sintoma o behavior sa kanila. Pag may makita ka tayo, halimbawa, na may the usual symptoms that is associated with COVID, kailangan i-report ka agad yan. May protocol kasi yan na involved. You have to inform the Department of Health and so on, and somebody will be coming over to look at the child, but not to traumatize him or her. May contingency plan na prepare along that line. So that part I think is easy kasi in place na yung mga protocols na yan even right now, no? Ang medyo challenging siguro would be halimbawa na yung hindi natin anticipate na may bagong variant na lalabas, which might cause panic and so on, or mayroong sharp rise sa statistics, no, sa numbers. Oo, kung biglang tataas yan, siyempre depende. I can imagine if you are a mother or a father, every day tinitingnan mo yung assessment ng bayan mo, yung province mo, kasi your child is out there in the school. So ang napansin ko na ginagawa ng ibang bansa, they immediately stop their face-to-face exercises. Kung may variant na halimbawa lumabas na sinasabi na it's dangerous, it's contagious, etc., that children might be compromised, tigil ka agad. Yun ang nakikita ko. But siguro again, sila ni Malcolm at saka sila Charlie at saka si Romy can also share with us. Ayan, nandiyan si Roger, nag-raise ng hand niya, kung anong specific examples ng one is yung talagang bigla na mag-rise yung ng statistics ng yung risk assessment. Pag magbago yan, no choice tayo dyan. And you have a pilot face-to-face in a place where there is a very sharp rise that tinitrace pa. And so that would not be wise for us to continue. And that has been done also in other countries. Nag-umpisa na sila, tapos umaatras pag makita nila na may threat na lumalabas. Pero kung halimbawa ang isang child nagpapakita ng symptoms, trained naman ang mga teachers, kailangan report ka agad. At saka ang isang requirement din natin sa shared accountability, accessible yung health station. Halimbawa, hindi yung mag-travel ka ng 3 araw bago makarating sa isang clinic or barangay facility. Kailangan we have to make sure. Kasi the good thing about the very, very small, kasi statistically, it's very, very small. Out of 61,000, you focus on 100, no? But the good thing about a very small sample is you are able to monitor them individually. Saka ang bilis, because we are organized, our government organizations are structured in a way na decision making is also decentralized. Regional director to the superintendent, the supervisor, the principal, local government, diretso yan. Because we are near each other Oo. Malaman ka agad yan ng local government. Usually, kung walang ambulansya, it's the local government who provides mga emergency, dadaling ka agad sa hospital, treatment. Mayroon ng protocol and that's, I think, the established part. Ang medyo unpredictable is the behavior of COVID itself, which God forbid should we are hoping will not happen. Pag mag-sharp ang very, very sharp increase in the risk assessment, then there is no point in insisting on the pilot at this time in that particular place. Like I was wondering, because I come from Negros Oriental, and I was wondering why Negros Oriental is not in the list of provinces, and it was explained to me that it's because mataas ang risk assessment sa amin, and we have to wait until things simmer down. So sa Region 7, wala yung province ko, and I understand it perfectly. Kasi biglang nag-shoot up kasi yung numbers doon sa Negros Oriental relative to Cebu or Bohol or Negros Occidental. Yun ang hindi mo ma-predict. It's COVID, which I would really not be an expert on predicting how COVID will behave. But the symptoms perhaps that can be handled.
Thank you, Secretary. To supplement our response, let's call on first ASEC Malcolm and then Director Roger after.
Okay, thank you, Director Nina. Dano, siguro dun sa tanong mo, I think probably the question really is how big is the probability ng transmission, and to really lessen the probability or the chance of our learners, teachers, and non-teaching personnel involved in the pilot to be lessened. Ito, papasok yung napakahigpit na vetting process. No? If you remember, we started with 1,000 plus school, lowered down to 638, at ngayon 100 na lang. So itong mga schools na ito ay talagang dumaan dun sa proseso na kung saan along the way, minimize natin yung probability of possible transmission. No? At kaya dun sa 100 schools, Dano, kung makikita mo, most of these schools are located in far-flung areas. Talagang halos walang COVID as reported by Director Roger in Polillo Island. So kung tatanungin natin yung perspective ng mga magulang na nandun sa lugar na yon, they're very confident that talagang walang transmission. In fact, the transmission or the possible transmission may only coming from the outside. And this is probably where the LGU role will play a vital the LGU's role will play a vital role, no? Na kung saan kailangan ma-secure nila yung lugar na yon for people coming in, coming out of the communities. So, in our meeting with DOH yesterday, there was also a commitment from DOH to co-monitor the entire period of the pilot. Kasi sila, syempre, doon sa health aspect, very particular sila ron. So in fact, kaya nga natanong ko yung tanong na paano yung testing ng mga bata. So sabi nila, no, we just look out for symptoms. At pagka may symptoms na yung bata, then we apply the necessary protocol. But then again, Dano, the question is how big is that probability? I think it will be lesser because of the entire process involved. So, at kung talagang wala tayo magagawa at nangyari, then that is where the contingency measures, as mentioned by Secretary, will really come into play. At ready naman tayo with the help of DOH and the help of LGUs to respond, no, accordingly if there will be cases of transmission. At automatic din yon, Dano, that if there's a need to shut down, no, the pilot program in that particular school, then so be it. No? It's part of the study. It's part of the program. This is where we learn so that we can make our decisions in the future based on this study. Thank you, Director Nina. Thank you, Dano.
Thank you, Asik Malcolm. Yes, Director Roger.
Yes, let me join the conversation. Bago pa, after na mapirmahan yung nung joint memorandum circular, si Secretary po ay nag-issue po ng memo, naka-attach po doon yung contingency planning manual.
Yes.
Doon po sa manual na yon, may mga scenarios doon na na-identify, Dano, no, na for example, pag may nag-exhibit ng symptom, ano ang unang gagawin ng school? So nakalagay doon step by step ano yung gagawin mo ng school. Halimbawa, take for example itong, halimbawa pag mayroong symptomatic na bata, may lagnat, no? So ang first step na gagawin ng ng advisor, kasi yung naghahawak doon sa klase, the advisor, dadalhin siya doon sa clinic, at sa clinic na yon ay mayroong isolation area. Habang temporary lang ito, kasi habang kino-coordinate ng school authorities, meron tayong school medical personnel doon. Araw-araw, requirement po natin yan. So habang kino-coordinate yung gagawin doon sa contingency na yon, posibleng tatlo ang gawin. Number one, pauwiin sa bahay at mag-isolate. Depende po sa assessment ng school authorities na trained on medical at may nurse din doon. Pangalawa, pwedeng i-recommend na i-subject for testing. Pangatlo, kung severe yung symptom niya, pwedeng dalhin siya sa sa malapit na clinic. So, yung ganong contingencies, may very detailed step by step diyan yung initial ni Secretary na manual for contingency planning. So, nung yung secretary doon sa Tamulaya, very small school, pero naglagay doon ng clinic na mayroon pang hospital bed yung municipal health clinic natin. So, may hospital bed yung school na yon at magtatalaga ng nurse doon araw-araw at nag-allocate sila ng isang space for isolation while kino-coordinate yung ganong contingency. Tama si Asik Malcolm, pag medyo severe yung sitwasyon sa school, mayroon pong criteria din na sinet doon si Secretary sa contingency planning, kailan ila-lockdown ang school at kailan muli ito bubuksan. So mayroon pong mga nabanggit doon na mga indicators na kailangan titingnan ng ating mga school authorities. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Director Roger. Secretary, would you like to add or?
Nasabi na ni Roger, now we have all the schools are required to have a contingency plan at saka detailed yan step by step. Ang ano kasi ang nangyayari kasi dalo is we are planning, we are implementing, we are launching a pilot study on where everything is not in an imperfect situation, where not everything is predictable. No, hindi lahat na conditions are under our control. No, there are unpredictable things. Kaya yun ang tinututukan natin. Pero yung kaya nating take action, as I said, children exhibiting symptoms, yung risk assessment, lalo na granular, we rely on granular risk assessment na itong lugar na ito tumaas na yung like as I said in Negros Oriental, tumaas bigla, no? So mismo the schools themselves na interesado sana silang mag-participate, sila na ang nag-withdraw kasi alam naman nila na hindi sila maka-qualified. Or like my very favorite island, and the island I love, which is Stakeholder. There was a period na zero, they have never heard of COVID at all. Last year, they proceeded to open last June, and they asked me, what is your problem ba? Bakit nagla-lockdown tayo? Kasi wala naman. But this time, Stakeholder is affected. So, yung mga ganong unpredictables, we have to recognize them and prepare for them. Na these events just might happen, and we have to be prepared, and the public also, and that is where you can come in, because the tendency is to expect perfection. Bakit hindi ganito ganyan? Bakit to hindi ito ginawa? Dapat ito ang nangyari. If you will recall, your member of media, the noise directed at DepEd was, bakit walang face-to-face? Ngayong mayroon ng face-to-face, some sectors are also asking, why kayo mag-face-to-face at this time? O are you risking our children, etc. So, but that's how it is, which we have to deal with. It's just that the unpredictables are much more unpredictable at this time. And the normal is different from the normal that we are used to. Like the normal face-to-face that we are used to, I was used to, and perhaps, and I'm sure you were used to, where we go wherever we want to go inside the school campus. It's not like that. Even in the countries which we hold up as models or as perfect examples, kasi wala talagang no such thing at this time. But we do exert every effort that we can to fulfill the mandate and the requirements of the Constitution, which is really the provision of quality education. So ayun, mahabang answer, but I know na nasusundan mo na nakikita mo the challenges that we have to face, no? But that's part of the situation. That's the normal now. So, ayan, we deal with it. Sige.
Thank you, Secretary. Sir Dano, would you have any additional questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. I have two additional questions. Very, very quick na lang to siguro, no? Second question is, well, since alert level 2 ang NCR, we're just curious kung ano ang chances na is there any indication na NCR posibleng makasama sa pilot face-to-face classes, or maybe sa expansion stage na, kasi there's actually talk now na posibleng lalo pang bumaba ang Metro Manila sa alert level 1. So I mean, it's still up in the air, pero as long as the cases are going down, what is the prognosis for Metro Manila, for NCR, as far as face-to-face classes are concerned? pangatlong tanong, ito very, very quick lang to, usaping finansya. So, ang Alliance of Concerned Teachers kasi, may sinasabi na imbis daw na cellphone load ay monthly allowance na lang yung ibigay dun sa mga teachers kasi hindi daw kakasya yung 1 gigabytes na month na allotment para doon sa modular learning. I understand medyo askew ito, but I guess this is a good opportunity na rin po para malaman din po namin ang saloobin ni Secretary Briones. Ayun po. Those are the two remaining questions that I have. Thank you.
Yung unang question, Dalo, about NCR, we are looking forward to including NCR because we need also to have experience of handling these challenges in urban, in heavily urban communities like in NCR or in Cebu or in Davao, yung mga ganon. We need that kind of experience as well. Or in Region 4A, for example, the largest cluster of students regionally is Region 4A. And it's really a mixed population because that's where you have the industrial sector, manufacturing, financial in Region 4A, from different parts of the country yan. At saka polyglot yung languages doon in that area because of the workers, the bosses, the foreigners, and so on. So gusto nating makita yan, and we are looking forward to. This is why I announced kanina that we plan to submit to the president a tentative report on what to expect by November 15, and we are also requesting that he will in a sense, we call it delegate or entrust the judgments that have to be made in relation to schools to the Department of Health and the Department of Education, and possibly, of course, the DILG. Kasi yung tatlong yan sangga on this project so that we can decide kung mag-increase tayo o mag-close tayo, etc. Among at saka ipaubaya niya sa amin yung mga decisions na yan. So we are submitting a report to him kasi the law is very clear. One, you must be wondering, why is it that sabi nga ng isang fellow journalist mo, lakadaisical, si Secretary of Education is lakadaisical on the matter of the status of education, no? Wala daw ginagawa, etc. Sabi ko, maybe he should search the thesaurus for another word to describe my predecessors. Because I had 7 predecessors before PISA results, for example. But that is out of the, So we are reporting to the president. Ito na, we are ready na kami, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, we would like to ask your permission if you will allow us to make decisions for expansion and so on, considering the degree of preparation and the thorough studies that we made. It's not a dream or something that we just or like Venus emerging from the head of Jupiter. Hindi ganon. Pinag-aralan yan since the beginning of the year kung ano ang impacts ng lockdown, etc. We have been monitoring researches all over the world because I am a research person. So we are requesting him and we will submit the report because the law is very clear. The law says ang affected law is basic education. This is why sabihin na iba, bakit ang ibang levels of education they are able to do what they wish because they're not covered by this amendment of the law. Secondly, others are saying, bakit nagagawa yan ng other departments? They get what they want, they do whatever they want, and so on. Sabi ko, again, they don't have a law hanging over their head. and that is the training in public administration. If you are a government official, and you believe in what you are doing, then you have to submit to the discipline of the law. And maybe I tell myself that maybe we should shift from barking at the DepEd tree to another tree because sabihin mo lakadaysikal, walang ginagawa ang DepEd, walang wa-effect si DepEd. You have that very, very clear provision. So which we endeavor to follow, even on the matter of international schools. That is in the amendment of the law. And I think and I believe the president will listen on depending on how this pilot works out. And we are and this I'm saying in front of my DepEd family. I have very, very high hopes that this will work out for the 100 schools. Can you imagine, Dalo? I'm sure the local government officials will be watching day and night. Nasa teritoryo nila yung nasa kanilang constituency yung school Di araw-araw papasyalan siguro, sine-check up. I can imagine the parents. So lahat nagbabantay and it's a shared responsibility. And so pag mayroong challenges, I suppose everyone will chip in, including the private sector, kasi yung private sector also participates through the parent-teacher associations, mga PTAs. There are very active PTAs. There are also those which wait for us to make the decisions. So yun ang message ko, not only to the public but also to our DepEd family, that we are doing everything to make this pilot work because of the implications for the entirety of Philippine education, which, as I said, is required by law. Yun ang challenge diyan, and which perhaps other aspects of governance are not subjected to itong amendment sa number of days and the opening of school, which is given to the president. Ayun. A long answer to your short question.
Yes, just the third lang po, just the third question lang po, baka lang po meron
Sure.
baka lang meron pa yung gusto. Yes.
Yeah, Secretary, as the third question is not directly under our topic on pilot implementation of face-to-face classes, would you like to respond, or we can defer and respond in a different forum?
What is the advice of June? Ano bang question mo, Dalo?
It's just a simple statement po, ma'am, no. Alliance of Concerned Teachers is requesting na yung allotment for internet,
yes.
Gawin na lang monthly allowance kasi kulang daw yung 1 gigabyte na allotment for data for modular learners. Now, I understand this is a little askew, but this also relevant to quite a few, kasi mas marami pa rin yung mga naka-modular learning ngayon. So we'd like to have your thoughts on the matter po. Your thoughts on the situation.
Yes. Perhaps June can send to you the memorandum of our Undersecretary for Administration. Kinalculate nila yan, that includes already 8 hours of conferencing, etc. Kinalculate nila yung needed ng teacher. So and also si Yusek Ann would have also details on that. And it's irrelevant. Hindi siya irrelevant. It is a relevant question, Dalo. Kasi makukonect mo yan sa and that's an important question also to raise and to answer, and I'm glad you brought it up because we would dearly love to answer that. Yusek Ann.
Thank you, ma'am. Dano, we have to put context on the question because teachers have a cash allowance. Cash allowance is 5,000 given outright as a cash to the teacher, and in the budget law nakalagay din po doon yung internet and communication expense included in that outright cash allowance. Now, aside from that 5,000 cash allowance given to all teachers, ay nag-provide tayo ng connectivity load. And this load is under the Bayanihan Law. Kaya po nakalagay naman po doon to connect the teachers, and however the funding is not that enough, Dano. We also want to give, the much needed bandwidth and kung sana nga regular, at have to do that. But there are limitations, for example, in funding. And isa rin po sa tanong niya, ma'am, very relevant, bakit load? Ba't hindi cash? Dano, the answer is, this is public funds. And public funds has to follow COA rules. And COA has a circular saying you cannot add to the list of eligible allowances. There is already an allowance eligible for the teachers, and that is the cash allowance. We cannot convert any other benefits into cash unless there is a legal basis to do such. So wala po tayong authority na sasabihin natin na halimbawa yung mga nakukuha ng ibang mga empleyado ay gagawin mong cash. Audit finding po yan at hindi po namin ipapahamak ang 1,000,000 teachers na magkaroon ng cash, and then later on COA will say you have to refund it because there's no legal basis to do such. So una ay legal authorization. Second is funding allocation. Funding allocation, I heard 1,500 yung kanilang hinihiling. 1,500 times 1,000,000 teachers times 12 months is equivalent to 18 billion pesos. Unfortunately, that is not included in our budget right now. So, yun yung mga answers, direct answers, Dano, but we do recognize the change. I know you being a reporter, you also change. Hindi na kayo nag-field report at very dependent kayo sa internet connection. But this is some of the adjustments na hinihiling natin. Mga bata nga natin mag-aaral, nag-a-adjust. So, much more tayong mga adult na may mga adjustment in our working arrangement. These are all the things that we are also doing. Again, repeat ko, tatlo na yan, cash allowance, connectivity load given to you as a SIM through the Bayanihan Law. We also have the communication expense. So, this is expense, not allowance. Ibig sabihin, kung meron pa talagang valid, authorized, at talaga pong ginawa ng ating mga manggagawa, meron din po under the COA rules, allowed silang mag-reimburse, subject to criteria, subject to submission of supporting documents, and subject to availability of funds. So those are the three things available right now, and we wonder why, yun nga po, nagiging questions. We know, struggle, dahil lahat tayo ay may problema rin naman sa internet connection, but I hope everyone is aware na meron pong ginagawa at nabigay na po yung marami po dyan ay naibigay na sa kanila. Salamat.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Siguro dapat ipadala natin yung memorandum ni Yusek Alain. Kasi kinalculate nila yon lahat na approximately magkano pangangailangan, at saka may mga local government units na nagbibigay, di ba? Nagbibigay sila ng gadgets, etc. sa kanilang mga teachers. Maswerte yung mga teachers in those local government units. At kumagastos itong mga local government units in terms of billions. And so they have been tracking kung paano ginagamit itong mga load, mga gadgets, etc. And so nakikita ko din, and I don't have to make a public observation on that. So ayun, that's the explanation. Like when we decided to from my time, no other secretary did that. Every year yung yung Teachers Day, Global Teachers Day, na magbigay tayo ng 1,000 per teacher in recognition of their faithfulness and their loyalty to the teaching profession. Ang tinirmahan ni President for this year na binigay natin 1,000 lang, sasabihin natin anong magagawa sa 1,000, etc. ang gastos noon umabot ng 910 million, halos 1 billion to give 1,000 to the teachers. So you can imagine the burden of generating funding, considering the sheer size of our agency. Kasi kami ang pinaka malaki. Halos 1 million na yung namin, teachers namin, plus other considerations. But we're not saying na we are against it. Sinasabi lang namin, these are the facts. Mayroon silang cash allowance, mayroong other expenses which are allowable, and then na-calculate ito lahat ng ating USEC for administration. At saka kasama pa dito yung how many hours of teleconferencing, etc. Kasama na doon sa pag-calculate ng binibigay. And also very clear sa audit regulations and about cash allowances which are given. Klaro kasi ikaw, you're paying taxes, no? I'm sure you don't like paying taxes. All of us don't like paying taxes, but we pay taxes. And so people are very sensitive as to where the tax money is spent. So you have to show. So magkailangan may showing. But we're doing our best at this time. So tatlong sources na yan ngayon. Ulitin mo nga, Yusek Ann.
Yes, ma'am.
Yung
cash allowance.
Cash allowance, magkano?
5,000 pesos.
5,000.
And then we have the SIM load, SIM card given to the teachers. Yun po yung tinatanong kung instead of the load ay ba't hindi cash. And then we also have the reimbursable communication expense. May ceiling pong binigay ang DBM. Recently lang yan kasi last June lang nag-release ang DBM ng authorization to reimburse 300 pesos per month, subject to availability of funds and subject to submission of supporting documents. So those are the things po na ginagawa naman po natin. At marami po sa mga guro natin ang nakaka-avail talaga po lahat. Kasi pag hindi nila ito na-avail ay mahirap po talaga yon. We are supporting them and we are providing the needed mechanism. Lalo na po ngayon ay blended learning tayo.
So sana magkaintindihan tayo, and thank you. I'm glad you raised that question, and it is relevant as far as we are concerned. Okay.
Secretary, thank you for Yusek. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that wraps up our open forum. But before we say goodbye to all our live viewers, Secretary, would you have a closing message, especially to our learners this coming November 15 sa opening ng ating pilot implementation of face-to-face classes?
Wala na siguro. I join Ara in observing that everyone is excited about the return of face-to-face. But this is a face-to-face study which is different from the face-to-face. We have to siguro makatulong sila Dalo, makatulong yung media friends natin na yung face-to-face na ina-anticipate natin. It's not like the face-to-face that we have been used to, where a child can stay all hours in school and can play and go wherever he or she wants. It is face-to-face within the context of the pandemic. And also, we'd like to assure the public that we have planned for this for quite some time. We intended to implement it as early as January and later in March. And so we're finally implementing it on a pilot basis, and we plead for support. We plead for encouragement and perhaps inspiration, especially from our parents and our children, because this pilot involving only 100 schools, public schools, and 20 private schools, and some international schools will impact very heavily on our educational system itself. And DepEd is very much aware of it. Thirdly, this is not just DepEd alone, but DepEd has been mobilized. We have canceled whatever engagements, whatever demands, whatever projects we have to implement, because we take this matter very seriously. So I would like to thank DepEd for all its efforts. Our MANCOM, our EXICOM, our SDOs, our principals, our teachers, lalo na ang teachers, susi talaga ang teachers dito. And of course, the parents and the local government units and the public. Kasi you have 100 schools. Supposing something happens in one school, headline kaagad yun. And the good thing or the wonderful thing that is happening in 99 schools probably are not noticed anymore. So gusto lang naming sabihin na do not expect perfection, because the situation is not perfect. Do not expect predictability, because the situation is not predictable, especially COVID. Yun ang pinaka-framework eh. All our other data, we are as accurate as possible, but the behavior of COVID, that is beyond us. And we should also like to extend our appreciation to the Department of Health for their advice, because we are not health experts. And also to the DILG also for their advice, because we are not politicians. We are merely implementers of the law, which empowers the president to make the final decision. And we are also grateful to the parents and the private sector organizations. So thank you, one and all. We are looking forward to a successful pilot, and especially wala nang tulugan itong ating mga director, mga MANCOM, naglilibot na. They're taking the risk. Biro mo, biyahe na biyahe. They're visiting all the 100 schools. And if they see something challenging, they will immediately act on it. Ang ating mga officials, lahat, this is a test not just for the DepEd, but for Philippine education as well. So maraming salamat. Umaba ata. Sige, kasi maganda yung questions eh. Thank you for the beautiful questions, members of the press. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, ladies and gentlemen. That was Secretary Leonor Magtolis-Briones. Siyempre kasama ang ating mga USEC, ASEC, at ating RDs at ating pang ibang field officials. Thank you very much for joining us at this afternoon's press conference. Nako, talagang pinapatunayan po ng sambayanang Pilipino na sa panahon man ng COVID-19 pandemic ay talagang buong-buo ang pagkakaisa at bayanihan ng Pilipinas para sa edukasyon. Sana nga po'y patuloy natin yung pangalagaan at isa katuparan, lalo na sa muling pagbubukas ng mga eskwelahan para sa ating kabataan. Dito po nagwawakas ang ating press conference. Maraming salamat sa ating mga kasamahan sa media at press na nakibahagi sa talakayan. At syempre, thank you din sa ating mga partner channels tulad ng CLTV 36, DWRB 103.9 News FM, Romblon Cable, Kabangkalan Community Antenna TV, Siargao TV ng Caraga Region, The Post, and Rappler. Thank you very much for joining us today. Ako si Nina Bianca Sanglay mula dito sa Office of the Secretary, at sa ngalan po ng tuloy-tuloy na paghubog sa mga kabataan, naway tayo pa rin ay magkaisa upang mas mapalakas pa ang aksyon at solusyon para sa edukasyon. Ito po ang EduAKSYON, aksyon at solusyon para sa edukasyon, DepEd Virtual Press Conference.